Chapter 1995. After an unknown amount of time, they could hear people calling out to them from afar. Fourth Lady, the Golden Snake King? Someone in the cave suddenly stood up. Yang Miaojin started to put on her clothes in a panic. Oh no, we suddenly disappeared. They sent people to look for us. Song Qingshu laid on the hay and looked at her smooth back. He could not help but touch it. Tis TSK, you have been fighting on the battlefield all year round, but you don't have any scars on your body. What a miracle. Yang Miaojin slapped his evil hand away and said proudly, I have the pear blossom spear in my hand. Who can hurt me? Song Qingshu thought of what happened earlier and could not help but smile. You are indeed good at using spears. Yang Miaojin obviously remembered the embarrassing incident earlier and said angrily, Don't mention that again. Also, you are not allowed to tell anyone about what happened tonight. Not allowed to tell anyone? Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. Aren't you being taken advantage of? Yang Miaojin looked at him strangely. I slept with you. Why am I the one being taken advantage of? Song Qingshu, this was not right. Why did he feel like he was being taken advantage of for free? Hurry up and get up. I don't want them to see us like this. Yang Miaojin quickly put on her clothes. Her two perfect long legs were soon covered by her skirt. She quickly finished putting on her clothes. Just as she stood up, she suddenly staggered and turned around to glare at Song Qingshu. It's all your fault. Song Qingshu was confused at first, but when he saw that her legs were a little unnatural, he could not help but understand. Why is it my fault? You were the one who wanted to do it again and again just now. Yang Miaojin's face turned red. She humphed and turned around. She did not want to admit defeat verbally, but in her heart, she complained, if I knew this was going to happen, I would have saved it. It really hurts. Feeling the voices of the Redcoat Army getting closer, Song Qingshu had no choice but to put on his clothes and go down the mountain with Yang Miaojin. Do you need my help? Song Qingshu extended his hand. Yang Miaojin ignored him. I'm not that weak. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly, but he somewhat liked her independent character. If every woman was like her, there would be no need to take care of or be responsible for anything. Song Qingshu couldn't help but shiver when he imagined that the world was filled with such tomboyish women. It would be better if there were more girls. After the two of them went down the mountain, they found the main group. Yang Miaojin pointed at Song Qingshu and said, he was poisoned. I want to treat him. The other members of the Redcoat Army did not suspect anything. The two of them were highly skilled in martial arts. Even if they were slightly poisoned, they should have been cured within a night. Thus, they did not question them any further. Only Lu Fucking and a few of Li Quan's subordinates knew what was going on. Their gazes quietly shifted back and forth between the two of them. They noticed that Yang Miaojin's face was bright red, and there seemed to be a hint of spring between her brows. Then, they noticed that she walked a little unnaturally. How could they not know what was going on? They thought to themselves that the most beautiful horse of the Redcoat Army had been ridden by a man in the end. When they thought about how Li Quan had racked his brains, only to end up benefiting another man, they could not help but sigh. However, they were aware of their status as surrendered generals. At this moment, none of them dared to say anything, afraid that they would bring trouble upon themselves. When they returned to the main tent, the yellow-robed woman came up to them and asked with concern, I heard that you were poisoned? Song Qingshu replied, Fortunately, I had the help of the Fourth Lady. The poison has been cured. Thinking about the process of curing the poison, Yang Miaojin's face turned red. She thought to herself, why did you have to drag me into this? She did not know why, but she always felt a little guilty when facing the yellow-robed woman. It was as if she had stolen her younger sister's man. However, she had clearly asked the yellow-robed woman yesterday, and the two of them did not have any relationship. You guys continue chatting. I'm going back to rest. Yang Miaojin did not mind facing other people, but with the yellow-robed woman here, Yang Miaojin always felt a little uncomfortable. After saying a few words, she hurriedly returned to her own tent. What's wrong with her? The yellow-robed woman was a little puzzled. Song Qingshu's smile was a little strange. Perhaps she was too tired last night. Thinking about how an inexperienced girl like her could be so fierce last night, he thought to himself, as expected of someone with high martial arts skills. Her body's flexibility and resilience are so high. If it was a girl from an ordinary family, she would probably not be able to get out of bed today. What are you thinking about? Noticing the strange smile on his face, the yellow-robed woman could not help but ask. No, nothing. Song Qing-shu felt a little guilty and directly changed the topic. Next, we'll bring the Red Coat Army and Li Quan's troops south. After we defeat Xia Quan, we can leave and rush to Mount Wudong. Xia Quan has 50,000 troops under him, and Luda also has 30,000 elite troops on his side. I'm afraid it won't be easy to take care of Xia Quan, right? The yellow-robed woman frowned. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. Don't worry. I've already discussed the plan with the Fourth Lady. It won't be long with Xia Quan. Speaking of Lin, in 2 days after Song Qing-shu and the yellow-robed woman left, the emperor issued an edict to go to Mount Wudong to worship the heavens and fulfill his vows. Jia Sherdao and a few carefully selected officials of the court accompanied the emperor. The crown prince was left in the capital to supervise the country, take care of daily affairs, and intimidate people from all sides. The emperor's safety was naturally the first consideration when he went out. However, the northern expedition had just been defeated, and the army had wasted a lot of money and food, so the principle this time was to travel light. But no matter how light the carriage was, he was still the emperor, and the troops accompanying him were still a powerful force. The emperor's personal bodyguards and imperial equipment naturally had to go with him. The guard to the front hall were originally to protect the emperor, so of course they had to go with him. There were also the bodyguards and the horse infantry army, who had selected a group of elites to go with them, including the palace maids and eunuchs. The entire group had about 10,000 people. As for the people of the Imperial City Department, Zhao Go left them in the capital to help the crown prince supervise the country. In the dragon carriage, Zhao Go's face was a bit angry. Where's that bastard Song Qing-shu? Where is he? He took my beloved concubine and didn't do anything. Do you want me to announce to the world that he has committed a crime of disrespect? Huang Chong, who was hiding in the corner, said lightly, he has to go take care of something now. Don't worry, he will arrive in time. What if he doesn't make it in time? Zhao Go was obviously a bit dissatisfied with this answer. He knew that success or failure depended on this, so he naturally had to make sure nothing went wrong. My disciple is by his side. He will definitely make sure he returns in time, Huang Chong answered. For the people of the Yang family? Zhao Go vaguely remembered that Huang Chong had also reported this back then. He couldn't help but snort. How can our lives be more important than my safety? Furthermore, their current situation was caused by Jia Sherdao. If this operation succeeds, their crisis will be resolved. Ying Luo and Song Qing-shu's actions really don't care about the big picture. Huang Chong didn't answer. He knew the emperor's cold nature. He thought that by the time the dust settled, the bloodline of the Yang family would have already been cut off. Back then, he hadn't been able to save Yu Fei's life because he had gone out. This time, he couldn't make the same mistake. On the other side, Liao Yingzhong was also praising Jia Sherdao's horse. Prime Minister, you really played a good trick. You had Xia Quan's people attack Yangzhou, and Lu Gu's people help from the side. I think that after the Wutang Mountain trip is over, Song Qing-shu won't be able to come back. Before, he had been a bit disapproving of Jia Sherdao's plan to use the mistresses of his family to stall Song Qing-shu. Now that he knew what Jia Sherdao had up his sleeve, he really admired him. Jia Sherdao smiled lightly. It's fine if he can't come back. If he does, I have another big gift for him. Chapter 1996. As for the Red Coat Army, Song Qing-shu didn't let Li Quan's troops completely merge with Yang Yaozhen's. Instead, he let Zhang Lin be in charge, but he had to listen to Yang Yaozhen's orders and name. The reason for this arrangement was that the Red Coat Army's main goal was to fight against the Jin Kingdom. Yang Yaozhen was from a Yang mansion of Tianhua, so she naturally wanted to be loyal to the Southern Song. Now that the Jin Kingdom was his property, he couldn't say it out loud. If Yang Yaozhen continued to cause trouble in the Jin Kingdom, he would be in a difficult position. He might as well use this opportunity to split the Red Coat Army. Yang Yaozhen's troops would be fewer, so even if she did something, the losses would be acceptable. Therefore, even though the two of them had sex, Song Qing-shu wasn't blinded by lust and made this arrangement. The leaders were discussing how to deal with Xia Quan in the tent. Zhang Lin reported, Li Quan has been here for a long time. It will take a long time to completely digest his troops. I'm afraid he can't join the battle right away. How many people can you send? Song Qing-shu was also clear that he had just subdued this army. If he acted too hastily, it was inevitable that he would repeat the mistakes of Yuan Jian in the past. Purely for the advantage of numbers, he let the surrendered army that had not been completely digested go to battle. At that time, if there was a mutiny in the front line, it would not be worth it. In the end, Zhang Lin and Yang Miaozhen came up with a plan. Together, they were able to gather around 10,000 seasoned veterans. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. This should be enough to deal with Xia Quan, but it might not be enough to deal with Lu Gu. Lu Gu led 30,000 elite soldiers to wander around Yangzhou City all day long, which was really an unstable factor. God knew if Jia Shidao would order him to attack Yangzhou one day. With his personality, he really couldn't stand the sword of Damocles hanging over his head all the time. However, the Golden Snake Army seemed to be on good terms with the Southern Song government. If he used the power of Yangzhou to deal with Lu Gu, it would have a huge impact. However, if the Redcoat Army defeated Lu Gu, then the Southern Song government wouldn't be able to do anything about it. That was why he risked his time to come here. 10,000 soldiers. That's enough. A confident look appeared on Yang Miaozhen's face. At this moment, it was as if she had once again become the fourth lady, who was invincible in the wilderness. But I can't use the troops in Yangzhou to deal with Lu Gu. Song Qing-shu voiced out his concerns. Yang Miaozhen smiled and said, It doesn't matter. I don't need your people to show up. Since she already knew that Lu Gu was the mastermind behind her brother's death, she naturally had to take revenge. You still want to deal with Lu Gu? The yellow-robed woman was somewhat dissatisfied. No matter how disgraceful Lu Gu's actions were, he was still a high-ranking official of the imperial court. Moreover, his subordinates were all soldiers of the imperial court. She really did not want to see this situation happen. Yang Miaozhen said angrily, Since the time of Taizu, our Yang family has shed blood for the imperial court, and now what do we get in return? In the end, we only became the sacrificial pawns in the struggle between the upper echelons of the imperial court. All these years, we've worked hard in the Central Plains, hoping that the imperial court's army would conquer the Central Plains on a northern expedition. But what was the result? First, Lord Yu was killed, and then Minister Han was killed. Has that person in the palace really thought of subduing the Central Plains? The yellow-robed woman frowned. Sister, be careful with your words. Yang Miaozhen snorted and said, Haven't you been dissatisfied with him for a long time? You should know that he didn't save your father and brother for the sake of the throne. The yellow-robed woman replied in a deep voice, That's a different matter. After all, Lu Gu's subordinates are soldiers of the imperial court. Are they really soldiers of the imperial court? Song Qing-shu said at this time, I'm afraid these are already Jia Shidao's private soldiers. You must know very well why the emperor wants to go to Wutang Mountain this time. The yellow-robed woman opened her mouth, but she could not refute. It was not that Zhao Guo had never encountered something similar. After Yu Fei's death, Qin Hui had the backing of the Jin Kingdom, so he could be said to be extremely powerful. All the officials in the imperial court were Qin's henchmen. When Zhao Guo went to the imperial court, he even prepared a dagger in his shoes, because he was afraid that Qin Hui would kill the emperor. At that time, Zhao Guo was not as radical as this time, mainly because Qin Hui was old at that time, and he was still young. He could use the power of time to kill Qin Hui. In the end, as expected, Qin Hui was beyond cure, and Zhao Guo took back his power. This time, Jia Shidao's situation was completely different. First, Jia Shidao was younger than Zhao Guo. And second, some of Zhao Guo's hidden injuries in his early years had become more and more uncontrollable in recent years. He knew that he would never be able to outlast him, so he had to take the risk. If Jia Shidao is defeated in the Battle of Wutang Mountain, what if Lu Gu's trusted subordinates rebel with the army? Wouldn't the situation be even more difficult to deal with then? Song Qing-shu continued to persuade her. The yellow-robed woman was indeed persuaded, but she still had some concerns. But those people are soldiers of the imperial court, after all. Don't worry. We want to get rid of Lu Gu, not all of his soldiers. After that, I will try to deal with those soldiers in a gentle way. If they don't want to stay, I am even willing to let them go back to Jiangnan, Song Qing-shu said. Really, if that was the case, the yellow-robed woman thought it was a good ending. Why would I lie to you? Song Qing-shu was thinking that he would give her a lot of good conditions when the time came. Those soldiers in the southern Song dynasty often didn't get paid, and they were often punished unfairly. As long as he made targeted improvements, they would all go higher. When the time came, they would be willing to serve him, and I wouldn't be breaking my promise. Hearing him say that, the yellow-robed woman finally relaxed. She turned to Yang Miaozhen and asked, "Sister, what's your plan?" Yang Miaozhen raised her chin and said excitedly, "Of course it's a honey trap." Huh? Even Song Qing-shu was a bit dumbfounded, let alone the yellow-robed woman. Noticing their suspicious looks, Yang Miaozhen was immediately displeased. "Am I not beautiful?" "Of course you are." Song Qing-shu couldn't say anything against his heart, especially with that slender waist full of strength and those long legs that looked down on everyone else. No one would say that she wasn't a beauty. However, when it came to honey traps, people always thought of some weak or charming and gorgeous women, such as Chen Yuanyuan. It was really difficult to associate a tough woman like Yang Miaozhen with the word honey trap. Hearing his insincerity, Yang Miaozhen said angrily, "This time, I was able to accept Li Quan's troops so smoothly. Wasn't it because I lured him here with my beauty? If she didn't covet my beauty, how could you so easily incite Zhonglin?" Song Qing-shu had to admit that what she said was somewhat reasonable. At this time, Zhonglin also said, "The fourth lady has always been famous in the circle for her beauty. Xia Quan should have coveted her for a long time." "How do you know?" Hearing his words, Yang Miaozhen was a bit proud and couldn't help but ask another question. It wasn't that she wanted to know the answer, but she wanted to hear it from someone else's mouth so that she could gain face in front of Song Qing-shu. Zhonglin immediately shrank back. "This, I don't dare to say." Yang Miaozhen frowned. "Why don't you dare to say it?" Zhonglin smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid that you will kill me." "I forgive you." Yang Miaozhen waved her hand, acting like an emperor. Zhonglin swallowed his saliva, as if he had made a great decision, and quickly said, "In our circle, as long as it's a normal man, they all want to you." After saying that, he guiltily hid behind Song Qing-shu for fear that he would be stabbed to death by Song Qing-shu's spear. The woman in yellow blushed, thinking that these people in the forest were really vulgar. A dangerous light flashed in Yang Miaozhen's eyes. She approached Zhonglin and said, "So, you also want to?" Zhonglin hurriedly waved his hand. "I don't dare." Yang Miaozhen clenched her fist. "You don't dare or don't want to?" Zhonglin showed a bitter expression. "You said you wouldn't kill me." Yang Miaozhen kicked him out of the tent and coldly snorted, "I didn't promise not to hit you." Only then did Song Qing-shu stop her. All right. Didn't his words just prove your charm? You don't really want to kill him, do you?" Only then did Yang Miaozhen resentfully stop. She seemed to have thought of something and fiercely glared at him. "You got lucky." Naturally, Song Qing-shu knew what she was talking about and could not help but smile bitterly. The woman in yellow looked at the two of them suspiciously. She had a feeling that after just one night, there seemed to be something between them that they were hiding from her. Next, the group discussed the details of the plan. Then, Song Qing-shu and Yang Miaozhen led a small group of people directly to Xia Quan's encampment. The woman in yellow and her subordinates led the rest of the army to follow from afar and wait for the signal. When they arrived near Yangzhou, the two of them also learned of the latest battle situation. Under the command of Zhou Zhuo, the Yangzhou army took the initiative to attack Xia Quan before he could stabilize his footing and caught him unprepared. If not for Lu Gu's timely arrival, which made Zhou Zhuo worry that he would take the opportunity to attack Yangzhou and have no choice but to retreat to defend, they might really have been completely annihilated. Of course, The current situation was that although Xia Quan lost, he was not seriously injured. Although Zhou Zhirua won, she did not obtain a decisive advantage. She still prioritized defense. After understanding the entire situation, Yang Miaojin could not help but sigh. That wife of yours is really amazing. Song Qingshu was also a little surprised by the results of Zhou Zhirua's battle. He could not help but feel a little proud. Are you afraid? Yang Miaojin, on the other hand, understood the unspoken meaning in his words and could not help but spit. Who said I wanted to marry into your Song family? I don't want to be jealous of a bunch of women all day long. My stage is destined to be on the battlefield. This belief of hers had originally been somewhat shaken after that night, but now that she knew how powerful Zhou was, she had completely given up on other thoughts. Song Qingshu nodded. The female generals of the Yang family are famous throughout the world. It is indeed a bit of a waste of talent to let you enter the boudoir. Don't worry, there will be many places where you will be needed in the future. As long as you don't only want to use me at night, it's fine. Yang Miaojin mumbled, but in her heart, she knew that Song Qingshu's influence was growing. In the future, there would definitely be many opportunities for him to fight on the battlefield. However, she seemed to be letting down the Yang family's ancestral teachings by doing this. Hearing her words, Song Qingshu could not help but think of the scene that night. He thought to himself that with her skills, it would indeed feel good to use her at night. At the same time, in the Red Coat Army, Yang Miaojin easily found a middleman to pass a message to Xia Quan. The group was quickly welcomed into his army camp. Hua Yi, Peng Yabin, and the other generals did not leave his side. The surroundings were also filled with imperial bodyguards. There was even a team of 1,000 soldiers waiting for orders at any time. One could imagine how cautious Xia Quan was. This formation is really big. You have so many men, and you're afraid of a woman like me? Yang Miaojin swept her gaze over them. She knew that with this kind of defense, even with her martial arts, it would be difficult to injure him. Of course, with the addition of Song Qingshu, there was still hope. However, this was not the purpose of their trip. As for Song Qingshu, he had already disguised himself as one of her bodyguards and stayed by her side. Woman, everyone in the army camp cursed under their breath. They thought to themselves, when did you ever think of yourself as a woman? Moreover, with the might of your pear blossom spear, who wouldn't fear it? Of course, no one was willing to reveal their fear. Xia Quan chuckled and said, it's only because of the recent ambush from Yangzhou. Everyone has learned from their mistakes, so we always carry weapons and maintain vigilance. It's not targeted at Fourth Lady. I hope Fourth Lady will not blame us. Yang Miaojin secretly cursed him for lying through his teeth. However, she did not expose him. She said with a smile, I heard that the situation on your side is not good. It's just a small trick to lure Yangzhou out for a decisive battle. Xia Quan could only feign ignorance. He did not want to say more on this topic. He hurriedly asked, Fourth Lady, what is your purpose for coming here? I want to ask about the details of what happened to my brother. When Yang Miaojin said this, even Song Qingshu broke out in a cold sweat for her. She clearly knew that it was the other side who did it. Yet, she asked such a question in front of him. As expected, the expressions of Xia Quan and the others changed, but they quickly concealed it. We are also extremely saddened by the death of the First Master. That day, the First Master and I discussed the matter of the alliance, and then we left this place. He repeated the lie that he had long prepared. It really is the lackeys of those golden men, Yang Miaojin said through gritted teeth. Seeing that she really believed him, Xia Quan could not help but sigh in relief. If it was someone else, he would still have some doubts. However, the Yang siblings had always had a deep hatred for the Golden Men. Once they heard that the Golden Men were behind this, new and old hatreds surged together, and they lost their rationality. This was also the reason why he wanted to find the Golden Men to take the blame. Xia Quan hurriedly comforted her. Fourth Lady, please restrain your grief. We will definitely avenge First Master. General is righteous. I thank you on behalf of my brother. Yang Miaojin cupped her hands and bowed. Xia Quan hurriedly went to help her up. Fourth Lady, you're too polite. First Master and I are sworn brothers. I will not hesitate to avenge him." At the same time, his eyes swept over Yang Miaozhen's body. He thought to himself, "I haven't seen her for a long time. This woman is becoming more and more feminine. That small waist, those hips, those legs. TSK, TSK. It must be nice to be pressed under her body." Yang Miaozhen got up in advance and did not let him help her up. "All right, I just heard the general mention the matter of the alliance that you discussed with Big Brother. I wonder if it still counts?" Xiaoquan was stunned. He had just said it casually. It should be known that he had only agreed to it to numb Yang Aner. However, in front of so many subordinates, he could not go back on his word. He could only smile and say, "Of course it still counts." However, he secretly despised her in his heart. "What right do you have to form an alliance with those defeated soldiers of yours? Li Quan is more like it." All right, where's Li Quan?" Xiaoquan asked curiously. "I killed him," Yang Miaozhen said indifferently. As soon as she said this, everyone in the tent unsheathed their long swords. A group of people surrounded her and looked at her warily. Chapter 1997. Yang Miaozhen did not mind at all and stood calmly in her original spot. "I originally wanted to form an alliance with Li Quan, but he was too daring and dared to put aphrodisiac in my milk tea. After I saw through him, I naturally killed him." Her words were 90% true and 10% false. This kind of lie was usually the hardest to see through. Xiaoquan was startled and waved his hand to signal his subordinates to put away their knives. He couldn't help but sigh. "Li Quan has been madly pursuing you all these years. I didn't expect him to do such a thing today," Yang Miaozhen said as she stared at him. "Actually, I've thought it through. Since we want to form an alliance, why didn't we form an alliance with the strongest person? Instead, we found someone like Li Quan who can't make it." Noticing the pair of watery eyes that seemed to be able to speak, Xiaoquan couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He thought to himself that this tigress was quite feminine at times. What was she hinting at? Xiaoquan suppressed the joy in his heart and asked, "Fourth lady, why did you come here?" Yang Miaozhen sighed. "Now that my big brother is dead, I can't control the Red Coat Army as a woman. I also killed Li Quan a few days ago. Li Quan's subordinates will definitely want to avenge their big brother. I'm also in a dilemma. After thinking about it, I can only come to Big Brother Xia. I hope Big Brother Xia could take me in." Xiaoquan was ecstatic to see her in such a weak state, especially when she called him Big Brother Xia. He felt his whole body go soft. The thousands of people under Yang Miaozhen's command were fine, but the key was herself. The fourth lady was a famous beauty. She had a tall figure, slender legs, and a face that was as beautiful as a peach. Which man in the circle didn't want to press her down and ravage her mercilessly? Unfortunately, her status was high and her martial arts were extremely high. No one in the Red Coat Army could beat her, so everyone could only fantasize about it in the dead of night. Now that he heard that she wanted to rely on him, how could Xiaoquan not be happy? When she became his subordinate, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? The only thing he had to worry about was Yang Aner. However, he had done it secretly and he didn't do it himself, so there shouldn't be any problems. Moreover, when he thought of the thrill of killing his brother and taking his sister, was there anything happier in this world? I wonder how Yang Aner's wife is. Song Qing-shu saw Yang and Er's eyes flicker, constantly sweeping over Yang Miaozhen's body, revealing a lustful look. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. No wonder people say that heroes have a weakness for beauties. If Yang Miaozhen was a man, or if Yang Aner's son Yang Yu came to rely on him, he would definitely be able to rationally consider the potential danger. But now that he saw the woman of his dreams, how could he make a rational judgment? "Fourth lady, what are you talking about? Get up quickly," Xiaoquan said as he tried to help her up. Yang Miaozhen stepped aside and cleverly avoided his hand. "Thank you, Brother Xia." Xiaoquan wasn't surprised. If Yang Miao was so easily taken advantage of by a man, then she wouldn't be the fourth lady that shook the world. In the future, everyone will be a family. Big Brother will help you take revenge, and Li Quan's people won't dare to find trouble with you anymore. "Thank you, Brother Xia." Yang Miaozhen resisted the disgust in her heart and said in a sweet voice. She then immediately changed the topic. "All right, Big Brother, Are you attacking Yangzhou? Xiaquan's face darkened. Yes. After all, he had lost a battle in Yangzhou. He couldn't keep his face. Noticing the other's hesitant expression, Xiaquan asked curiously, Fourth Lady, do you have something you want to say? Yang Miaozhen sighed and finally shook her head. I'm an outsider. I really shouldn't talk too much. Xiaquan immediately said, What outsider? In the future, everyone will be a family. There's no harm in saying anything. Yang Miaozhen hesitantly said, I don't understand Brother Xia's purpose in attacking Yangzhou. Xiaquan replied, Yangzhou is famous for being a rich and populous place. If we attack Yangzhou, us brothers can steal money and women. He immediately realized something was wrong. He chuckled and changed his words. At that time, we will have a base. With Yangzhou as our territory, our brothers won't have to eat northwest wind every day. Yang Miaozhen sighed and asked, But the problem is, do you think we can attack Yangzhou? Xiaquan immediately fell silent. In the beginning, he had absolute confidence. In the end, he was hit in the head by Zhou Zhiruo's sudden attack. Not to mention the losses, their morale was much lower than before. The elite level of the soldiers in Yangzhou was beyond their imagination. If it weren't for the fact that they had more people, the soldiers under their command would have long scattered. Later, they tried to attack Yangzhou a few times, but unfortunately, they couldn't break in. Lu Gu was also very stupid. He just watched from the side and didn't personally go into battle. Let's not talk about whether we can attack Yangzhou or not. Even if we do, when the Golden Snake Camp respawns and the Golden Snake King personally leads his troops over, can you defend it, Brother Xia? Yang Miaozhen continued to ask. Xiaquan was silent. He knew himself. He could fight others, but he was absolutely no match for the Golden Snake King who was at the height of his power. Moreover, I heard that the 9th princess of the Golden Snake Camp has already sent reinforcements to Yangzhou. If we don't pay attention, we will be surrounded instead of being besieged. Yang Miaozhen continued to add, What can we do? This attack on Yangzhou has already offended the Golden Snake Camp. Even if we retreat now, the Golden Snake King will come to us in the future. At this time, Xiaquan was also in a dilemma. If he fought, he felt that he couldn't defeat them. If he retreated, he was unwilling to do so. Hearing his tone soften, Yang Miaozhen was secretly happy. She didn't expect him to waver. It seemed that she had half succeeded. She continued to say, Brother Xia, have you heard of the story of the cunning hare being cooked after it has been killed? Xiaquan's expression changed. Although he wasn't cultured, he had heard of this story. He could roughly guess what she wanted to say. In fact, Lu Gu's attitude during this time had been ambiguous, which made him similarly worried. Yang Miaozhen said, The Golden Snake Camp and our Redcoat Army are both from the Revolutionary Army and have always been on the same side. If we help the Song people defeat the Golden Snake Camp, then we will definitely suffer heavy losses. The Song people will no longer have any scruples and directly send troops to annihilate us. Find a golden man? These years of fighting with the Jin people has become a blood feud. The Qing and the Jin are brothers, so naturally they won't participate. As for Liao, he can't even protect himself, let alone save us. Xiaquan knew that she was speaking the truth and couldn't help but be moved. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, I heard that you and your sister are descendants of the Yang residents of Tianbua. Why do you advise me not to help the Song people? Yang Miaozhen was already prepared. She replied indifferently, Because I have to be responsible for my men. These years, we have all gone through mountains of corpses and seas of blood together. I can't just watch as something happens to them. Our volunteer army was originally established in response to the Song Court's northern expedition. But you have seen it for so many years. Has the Song ever had the intention of a northern expedition? The only 2 times they did, they were destroyed by their own people. Not long ago, Han Xianzhou was killed in the northern expedition. It can be predicted that within 20 years, the Song Court will not launch a northern expedition. Can we really withstand the attacks of the other countries for another 20 years? You should have seen the Song Court's attitude towards us all these years. In name, they call us the Loyal Army, loyal to the court. But what do they call us in secret? They call us the Northern Army. They never allow us to enter the Song Court's territory and embezzle the money and food they provide us. Every time we have a dispute with the Southern Army, the officials are biased towards the Southern Army and blame everything on us. These few white-owned commissioner, except for Su Shiji, who is slightly better, didn't the others think of ways to divide and attack us volunteer armies? Brother Xia, if I'm not wrong, you must have been instigated by Lu Gu to attack Yangzhou this time, right? Yang Miaojin and Song Qingshu had discussed these words on the way here. At first, they had only wanted to persuade Xia Quan, but later on, they were completely emotional. The grievances they had suffered over the years were stirred up, and the more they spoke, the more they could not hold back. But this was a lucky hit, and it resonated with many people present. These years, we have indeed had enough of the Southerners. That's right, we fought for them with our lives on the line, but they secretly schemed against us. Every time, the Southern Army is satisfied with the money and food first, and then the leftovers are left for us. F*CK. Feeling the surging emotions of his subordinates, Xia Quan's expression changed slightly. But now, the arrow on the bow has to be fired. Are we going to retreat like this? How can we face the soldiers who sacrificed themselves? As a superior, he also had his own considerations. As the saying goes, a thief never leaves empty-handed. This time, they came with great fanfare. If they returned with their tails between their legs, then as the boss, his prestige would definitely be swept to the ground. His subordinates might even rebel against him. Yang Miaojin had also been a leader for a long time, so she naturally understood his concerns. Hearing his words, she whispered in his ear, "Brother Xia, why limit your vision to Yangzhou? Isn't there still Chuzhou?" At such a close distance, he could almost smell her breath. Xia Quan couldn't help but feel his heart beat wildly. She usually looked like a tigress, but he didn't expect her to have the fragrance of rouge on her. But after all, he was a hero, so he quickly came to his senses and said, "Chuzhou?" Yang Miaojin said, "Right now, Lu Gu is sitting on a mountain with his troops and watching the tigers fight. It's possible that he has the intention to catch both sides in one fell swoop. In this case, it's better to take advantage of his unpreparedness and directly wipe out his troops. In this way, not only will we be able to account to the Golden Snake Battalion, but we will also be able to seize Chuzhou. It will also let the Song people know that we are oppressed and will resist. In this way, the commanding officer will not dare to deal with us like before. It's killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Why not?" Xia Quan's expression changed several times. He was really persuaded. In fact, after several defeats in Yangzhou, he already knew that it would be very difficult to take it down. Unfortunately, he was in a dilemma. Originally, he had planned to retreat when the Golden Snake Battalion's reinforcements arrived. This way, he would be able to preserve his face to the greatest extent, but it was really embarrassing to go back with his tail between his legs. Now, Yang Miaojin's proposal made him realize that there was another way to go. Although Chuzhou was not as rich as Yangzhou, compared to his own territories, it was much richer. As for the revenge of the Song Court, he was not very worried. After so many years, he knew that the Song Court could defend themselves, but once they left the border, they were really a paper tiger. But he still hesitated. This time, he and Lu Gu had agreed to attack Yangzhou together. If he suddenly stabbed them in the back, it would be somewhat unkind. Seeing his hesitation, Yang Miaojin continued, "Brother Xia can send someone to invite Lu Gu to send troops to attack Yangzhou together. If he is willing to send troops, then it will be best for us to take Yangzhou together. If he still makes excuses and clearly shows that he wants to waste our strength, then he can't blame us for being unjust." Xia Quan's eyes lit up. "Okay, I'll give him one last chance." He immediately sent someone to deliver the letter. Then, he began to curry favor with Yang Miaojin. After chatting for a while, Xia Quan said pointedly, "Some people in Jianghu say that the first master's death has something to do with me. Fourth lady, what do you think?" On the side, Song Qingshu smiled slightly. He thought that this guy wasn't stupid. At this time, he finally thought of the most important problem. Yang Miaojin said, "It's just a rumor spread by some small fry. You are my brother's sworn brother. Why would you harm him? If I didn't believe you, I wouldn't have come here." Xia Quan laughed. Sister is right. Ha ha. After he finished speaking, he reached out to hug her. Hearing his tone become intimate, Yang Miaojin secretly snorted. She seemed to unconsciously stand up and just happened to dodge his Lushan claws. In my opinion, this kind of rumor must have come from the Quan's side or the Song Court. This isn't the first time they've tried to drive a wedge between us. Seeing Yang Miaojin hatefully looking towards the south, Xia Quan finally let out a sigh of relief. That's right. It's most likely the Song Court's plan to drive a wedge between us. This time, he didn't lie. The whole thing was indeed instigated by Lu Gu. Sister, don't worry. In the future, I will definitely take good care of you. Xia Quan stepped forward and said, Okay. Yang Miaojin looked at him shyly and timidly. Her gaze almost made Xia Quan die. He couldn't help but say, Hee, sister, you came here alone. Aren't you afraid that I'm a bad guy and will use force on you? Yang Miaojin smiled faintly and placed the pear blossom spear in her hand forward. With this old man here, I'm not afraid. If a conflict really broke out, although she might not be able to escape with the pear blossom spear, it would not be a problem for her to keep her chastity. Seeing the silver light on the spear tip, Xia Quan smiled embarrassedly. I was just joking. Fourth lady, please don't mind me. Yang Miaojin put away the spear and revealed a trace of a smile. Brother Xia, I know your feelings. When the matter here is settled, sooner or later, she will be yours. Xia Quan's bones almost went limp. He thought that when the time came, not only would he be able to marry the beauty, but he would also be able to obtain the army and territory under her command. The people nearby also looked at him with envy, jealousy, and hatred. It should be known that the fourth lady was a beautiful rose that countless men coveted. Now, she was finally going to be plucked by a man. Not long after, the person who had gone out to deliver the letter returned and relayed Lu Gu's reply. Before Xia Quan could say anything, Hui and the others under him couldn't help but say, Every time, it's the same excuse. It's obvious that he's trying to shirk responsibility and wants to see us waste our strength. That's right, let's F***CK him up. Another general, Peng Yibin, couldn't take it anymore. Chapter 1998. Under the agitation of the crowd, Xia Quan also had an idea. He had long been dissatisfied with Lu Gu and decided to take advantage of this opportunity to catch him unprepared. As for why he didn't directly plunder Chuzhou, it was because Lu Gu had 30,000 elite soldiers. If he realized where Xia Quan was going and led his troops to attack, it would be easy for them to be attacked from both sides. Although Xia Quan had more troops than Lu Gu, they were not as well trained and might not be his match. Rather than take the risk, it was better to take advantage of Lu Gu's unguarded weakness and defeat his troops in one fell swoop. Afterwards, Chuzhou would naturally be his. At the mention of plundering, everyone's eyes lit up. They quickly assembled and, under Xia Quan's lead, charged towards Lu Gu's encampment. Yang Miaojin moved together with him. As Song Qingshu's imperial bodyguard, he naturally followed beside Yang Miaojin. When the group charged in, Lu Gu was still snoring away. He had brought his army here for a vacation and to coordinate with Xia Quan to distract Yangzhou's main force. In Lu Gu's view, Yangzhou was Song Qingshu's territory. As the Prince of Qi, he definitely wouldn't dare to start a war with the imperial army. The other side wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Of course, he also didn't want to actually fight with the Yangzhou army. He had only come to coordinate with Xia Quan. Because of the previous surprise attack on Xia Quan in Yangzhou, Lu Gu had a certain degree of vigilance towards Yangzhou. He had set up a few lines of defense to prevent a surprise attack from the Yangzhou army. However, he was completely unprepared for Xia Quan behind him. In addition, some of the generals recognized Xia Quan and thought that he had come to discuss matters with their commander. By the time they saw the murderous soldiers behind him, it was already too late. Xia Quan's troops were like no man's land. In an instant, they broke through Lu Gu's already loose defensive line. Many of the soldiers were still sleeping. When they heard the sounds of fighting, everyone's first reaction was, run. Run for your life. In ancient times, the most frightening thing was to blow up a camp at night. With that kind of communication and outdated organizational skills, once a camp was blown up, it would be impossible to stop. Lu Gu was not a famous general, and the troops under his command could not be compared to the Yu clan army or the Qi clan army, which followed orders strictly. When they were attacked in the middle of the night, they fell into chaos as expected. No one knew what had happened, but they instinctively followed everyone else and ran for their lives. Of course, there were some of Lu Gu's trusted subordinates in the army. When they saw that something was wrong, they gathered a group of soldiers to ask Lu Gu for instructions. However, they found that he had just crawled out of bed and was about to escape without even putting on his armor. In a flurry, he failed to climb onto his horse several times. He was half asleep when he suddenly heard the deafening battle cries and saw the sky was dyed red by the flames. In the chaos, he didn't know how many enemies there were. He didn't even know who the enemies were. He was scared out of his wits and ran for his life. He didn't even try to resist, because he understood that when he returned to the imperial court, although he would inevitably be removed from his position and investigated, starting from the first ancestor, he wouldn't kill any officials. He could at least keep his life. Moreover, he was Prime Minister Jia's man. If he could recuperate in peace for a few years, Prime Minister Jia would find an opportunity to promote him. Naturally, it was far better than losing his life here. Seeing their commander in this state, the soldiers that had gathered with great difficulty immediately scattered. The entire camp finally collapsed beyond repair. Xia Quan led a group of people to rob the army's warehouse. A camp of 30,000 people had a lot of money, rations, and armor. Yang Miaojin didn't go with him. She directly searched for Lu Gu's whereabouts. She was prepared from the beginning and quickly intercepted the enemy, who was fleeing to the south. The pear blossom spear in her hand lit up the sky, and in a few moves, she killed the few guards around him. Female hero, spare my life. Female hero, spare my life. Although Lu Gu was the commanding officer, he had never personally gone into battle, nor did he know martial arts. He was a pure civil official. Seeing that his subordinate was defeated in a few moves, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Song Qing-shu, who was at the side, secretly frowned. He thought that Lu Gu was really a spineless coward. In the history of the Song dynasty, there were many loyal people, but there were even more spineless cowards like Lu Gu, which caused the entire dynasty to have a weak temperament. Bastard, do you know who I am? Yang Miaojin lifted him up and laughed coldly. She was tall and slender, so it didn't take her any effort to lift a man. Looking at the beautiful face that was inches away from him, if it was any other day, Lu Gu would definitely think of ways to get such a beauty into his tent. However, at this critical moment, he didn't dare to have such thoughts. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat, and he exclaimed, "You are the fourth lady, Yang Miaojin." Being sent by the imperial court to deal with the Redcoat army, he naturally had the information and portraits of the main leaders of the Redcoat army. Yang Miaojin was even more important. "It's good that you know me. Today, I will avenge my brother." As Yang Miaojin spoke, she had already pressed her spear against his throat. Lu Gu felt that his pants were about to get wet. He hurriedly said, "I didn't kill your brother. He was killed by the boatman for the bounty from the Jin kingdom." Yang Miaojin laughed coldly. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child?" Feeling the strength of her spear, Lu Gu was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly said, No. It was actually Xia Quan. It was all Xia Quan's doing. He poisoned Yang Ainer's wine. Then, the boatman was also an assassin. He took advantage of the time when Yang Ainer was poisoned. In order to survive, he revealed everything in detail. Previously, it was only a guess. Now that she had confirmed that it was Xia Quan who did it, a hint of killing intent flashed in Yang Miaojin's eyes. "Xia Quan has this dog egg. Isn't it all because of you?" "It really wasn't me," Lu Gu hurriedly explained. "If it wasn't you, then why do you know the whole thing so clearly?" Yang Miaojin snorted coldly. She thrust the spear in her hand forward, ending the man's life. Lu Gu's eyes were wide open. He didn't expect to die just like that. His heart was filled with regret. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have said so much. "Brother, I have avenged you. The only one left is Xia Quan." Yang Miaojin stared in the direction of Xia Quan, her entire body brimming with murderous intent. Song Qingshu frowned slightly. A little impatience will spoil great plans. Yang Miaojin nodded. Don't worry, I will make a move now. Song Qingshu said, then you be careful here. I will go to Chuzhou City first. Both Yang Miaojin and the yellow shirt woman were on the side of the imperial court. They had already hesitated before attacking Lu Gu's camp. If Xia Quan's men really did pillage Chuzhou City, they would never agree. Therefore, Song Qingshu first informed Chuzhou City to be on guard, lest Xia Quan took them by surprise. After a few steps, he stopped and turned back to Yang Miaojin. Xia Quan won a great victory tonight. As the saying goes, when one is warm and full, one thinks of lust. Now that he's satisfied, there's no guarantee that he won't make a move on you. Yang Miaojin's serious expression immediately turned into a smile. Don't worry, my pear blossom spear is not to be trifled with. Song Qingshu was still worried. Then don't drink the tea he prepared for you. Yang Miaojin remembered that the reason they were together that night was because of Li Quan's medicinal tea. Her heart skipped a beat. Don't worry. From now on, I won't drink anyone else's tea except yours. Looking at her standing there, illuminated by the firelight, she looked even more beautiful. Thinking of her soft and alluring body that night in the cave, he couldn't help but feel a burning desire in his heart. If not for the fact that he had something else to do, he would have lost control long ago. As if seeing the desire in his eyes, Yang Miaojin's heart also began to beat wildly. Pursing her lips, she raised her chin and said in a provocative tone, how about we fight another 300 rounds after this is over? Song Qingshu almost choked on his saliva. This woman is really tough. But at this moment, she had a different kind of wild beauty. Then don't be like last time, crying and begging me to stop at the end. Yang Miaojin's face turned red. That night was really embarrassing. She couldn't help but snort. Last time, I was inexperienced. This time, I don't know who will be the winner. Song Qingshu laughed heartily. All right, let's see who's the real deal. After saying this, he didn't delay any longer. With a heart full of anticipation, he started to hurry on his way. He wanted to finish this as soon as possible. His speed was naturally faster than an army. As for the soldiers under Lu Gu's command who had scattered in all directions, he had already sent a letter to Yangzhou City in advance, asking them to take the opportunity to capture and absorb them. As for how many of them could be kept, it would depend on Zhiruo's ability. 2 days later, Xia Quan led his army to Chuzhou City. In fact, after robbing Lu Gu's barracks, he didn't want to move anymore. However, even though he had robbed enough, he still didn't have enough soldiers. Lu Gu's military camp had money, food, and weapons, but he didn't have women. Now that the first master had found the beautiful and outstanding fourth lady, everyone's lust was burning. They thought that there must be a lot of rich young ladies in Chuzhou City, and these people were usually high and mighty. How could they be interested in a group of peasants? Now that there was an opportunity, they naturally didn't want to give it up. Unable to resist the instigation of his subordinates, and not wanting to show his lack of ambition in front of his sweetheart, Xia Quan finally decided to lead the army to attack Chuzhou City. Unfortunately, when they arrived at Chuzhou City, they found that the opponent had already set up a defense. They had even mobilized a lot of soldiers from other places. A group of people rushed over with red eyes, wanting to rob the money and women. Unfortunately, although the Song dynasty was not good at offense, his defense was first class. How could his motley crew defeat them in such a short time? After attacking for a few days, there was still no progress. Xia Quan had no choice but to withdraw his troops. When they came, they were valiant and high-spirited, but when they returned, they were all dejected and dispirited. Where's Fourth Lady? Xia Quan suddenly found that Yang Miaojin was nowhere to be seen. Hui and the others shook their heads. I didn't see her. Could she have gone somewhere else? Xia Quan was already angry at the recent losses. Hearing this, he immediately gritted his teeth. Did that be *TCH betray me after seeing that I lost the battle? I don't think so. Well, he was also a little uncertain. Suddenly, there was an earth-shattering battle cry in the surroundings. Countless soldiers surged out from all over the mountains. Countless arrows and rolling stones poured down from the nearby mountains. In an instant, Xiaquan suffered heavy losses, and the entire army fell into chaos. Xiaquan cried out in alarm. For the past few days, all of his attention had been focused on Chuzhou. Now, everyone was immersed in the depressed state of mind of losing soldiers and generals. Coupled with the fact that there were no enemies nearby, they forgot to send scouts to investigate the surrounding terrain. Unknowingly, they walked into this dangerous place. Now that things had come to this, he could not care so much. He hurriedly ordered, "Retreat, retreat quickly. The entrance to the valley has been blocked by falling stones." A soldier reported from behind. Xiaquan felt a chill in his heart. Knowing that there was an ambush ahead, he had no choice but to lead the army forward. As they charged and killed along the way, he also figured out the origin of the other party. The person at the top of the mountain, dressed in white, was incomparably beautiful. She looked down at him with an indifferent expression. It was Zhou Zhuo who had caught him off guard. This time, Yang Miaozhen, that be *TCH, caused me so much trouble. She even said that she was on the same side as the Golden Snake camp. Now, the other party wants to wipe out my entire army. Xiaquan cursed Yang Miaozhen countless times in his heart. At the same time, his heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Now that they were surrounded in this valley, the other party only needed to set a fire and none of them would be able to escape. However, what surprised him was that the other party did not have any intention of setting a fire. Moreover, the falling stones were not too frequent. It was as if they were deliberately driving them towards the entrance of the valley. Xiaquan knew that something was wrong, but he could only break out of the valley. He thought to himself, "I have so many men under me. Even if you ambush someone later, I can still make you suffer the consequences." With great difficulty, he rushed to the entrance of the valley. From afar, he could see a group of people waiting there. The woman in the lead had a graceful figure. Her bright red cloak made her even more beautiful. Who else could it be but Yang Miaozhen? Xiaquan's first reaction was to think that the other party was here to receive him. His face was just filled with joy when he suddenly noticed the murderous intent in the other party's eyes. He could not help but be furious. ****, you dare to betray me." Yang Miaozhen coldly snorted. "You plotted to murder the great master. Even a disloyal and unjust person dares to mention betrayal. Today, I will avenge Big Brother." Upon hearing this, Xiaquan laughed. "You think you can stop me with just these few men?" Yang Miaozhen ignored him and said in a loud voice, "Your old nest has already been destroyed by me. Look at this." After saying this, she gestured to the person beside her to wave the commander's flag of his camp. Looking at the tattered appearance of the commander's flag, it was obvious that the camp had experienced a great battle. Previously, when she and Song Qing-shu went to Xiaquan's tent, the yellow-robed woman and the main force launched a sneak attack on his old nest. Yang Miaozhen circulated her power, and her voice resounded throughout the valley. "Today, only the leader of the evil will be executed. Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed." Regardless of whether it was Yang Miaozhen's men or those from Yangzhou City, they all roared in unison. Xiaquan's soldiers were already scared out of their wits. When they heard that their headquarters had been raided, they all fell into chaos. Now that they heard that they could surrender, they no longer hesitated and threw their weapons to the ground. "Bastards!" Xiaquan drew his saber and chopped at the men who surrendered nearby. "Whoever dares to surrender, I will kill them." At this moment, a delicate shout rang out. Yang Miaozhen had already charged over with her spear. The soldiers blocking in front of Xiaquan saw Xiaquan continuously chopping at his subordinates. After looking at each other in dismay, they tacitly stepped aside, allowing Yang Miaozhen to charge in. "You dare!" Xiaquan finally realized that something was wrong. He picked up his saber and brandished it in front of him, trying to block the other party's shocking spear. Unfortunately, his saber only managed to cut through a few pear blossoms. By the time he reacted, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. He stared at the spear in disbelief. He knew that his martial arts were inferior to his opponent's. but he never imagined that he would not be able to withstand even a single blow. On the hilltop, Jojo raised her eyebrows and couldn't help but say, "The pear blossom spear truly lives up to its name. Congratulations on adding another martial arts expert to your harem." Beside her, Song Qing-shu held his breath and smiled sheepishly. "Zhuo, what are you talking about?" "She and I," Zhuo snorted. "Your own wife is surrounded and attacked, yet you passed by your own home and did not enter. Instead, you want to save her first. Who would believe that there was no adultery between the two of you?" Chapter 1999. Song Qing-shu smiled sheepishly. "It's all because I trusted your abilities. I knew that with you guarding Yangzhou, Xia Quan would not be able to take it down. The result was just as I expected. You even took advantage of the moment when he and Lu Gu cooperated and sent out your troops to beat him to a pulp." "You don't have to flatter me," Zhou said impatiently. "During this period of time, I didn't even dare to sleep. I racked my brains every day, afraid that I would lose your Yangzhou. But in the end, you didn't come back to help, but instead ran off to have fun with other women." Song Qing-shu's face darkened. "Didn't I go to the Red Coat Army to help? Is that so?" The more Zhou spoke, the angrier she became. "I don't believe that when you, the great King Song, came back, Lu Gu would still dare to be so presumptuous. Xia Quan and his motley crew saw that you were in Yangzhou City. How would they dare to attack?" She was not lying. These past few years, whether it was martial arts or a victory on the battlefield, Song Qing-shu's name had shaken the world. With him here, Xia Quan might not dare to attack. Song Qing-shu had no choice but to explain, "But if that happened, Xia Quan would retreat into the forest. How would we be able to catch him? We can't always be on guard against thieves. I thought that it would be better to remove the firewood from under the pot than to stop the boiling. So, I went to the Red Coat Army to solve this problem." As he spoke, he pointed to the valley. "Look, now that Xia Quan is dead, Lu Gu is also finished. Their troops can also be absorbed by us. It can be said that it is killing many birds with one stone." Zhou knew that what he said made sense. But when she saw Yang Miaozhen's valiant and heroic appearance in the valley, she looked like a blooming rose. She was so beautiful that she attracted all the men's attention. She felt a bit jealous. "Can't you always stay in Yangzhou? That way, Xia Quan will never come back, and you can always be with me." Hearing the bitterness in her words, Song Qing-shu remembered that they had been apart more than together these days. He knew that he was a little incompetent, so he wisely shut his mouth and stopped adding fuel to the fire. Zhou felt much more relaxed after venting her pinned-up dissatisfaction. She didn't want to be entangled in this matter. She quickly collected her emotions and returned her attention to the battlefield in the valley. Zhou could not help but sigh as she watched Yang Miaozhen galloping back and forth on her steed, berating Xia Quan's subordinates for surrendering. Her scarlet cape fluttered in the wind, making her look like a goddess of war. "I have to admit, your taste in women is pretty good." Song Qing-shu opened his mouth, subconsciously wanting to explain the relationship between the two of them. But the various images of that night appeared in his mind, and he could not help but close his mouth. It seemed that there was nothing to explain on the top of the mountain. While Zhou was sizing up the other party, Yang Miaozhen was also sizing her up. She saw her beautiful figure standing on the top of the mountain. The mountain wind blew her dress, and it seemed that even her delicate body was swaying. She could not help but wonder in her heart. She really is a peerless beauty, but she looks a little too thin and weak. But she remembered that the other party seemed to have won the title of the world's #1 in the martial arts world. In addition, not long ago, she was outnumbered and defeated Xia Quan. She did not dare to look down on the other party anymore. She thought to herself, "She is a little fairy who walked out of painting. She is not like you, a tomboy who mingles with men all day long. If I were a man, I would also like her style." Thinking of this, she felt a burst of vexation in her heart. She became more and more merciless. Those who were still stubbornly resisting, one after another, were killed by her. She struck the ground with her spear. Intimidated by her imposing manner, The others who originally had some thoughts of resisting also threw away their weapons. Seeing the situation in the valley, Zhou, who was on the top of the mountain, suddenly said, "She will follow me from now on. You are not allowed to hand her over to Agio." For a moment, Song Qingshu did not react. What did the other party mean by this? Seeing his dumbfounded expression, Zhou Zhiruo could not help but blush slightly. She explained in a low voice, "Ju has Qing to help him. He has the entire Golden Snake Battalion's team. In addition, there are many high-ranking military officers from the former Ming dynasty who have pledged their allegiance to him. Even the people who came to Liao's side have been arranged by you. Unlike me here, I'm all alone. Before, I had Zhao Min, that vixen, to help me, but in the end, even she was taken away by you." The more Song Qingshu listened, the wider the smile on his face became. Although what she said was somewhat reasonable, and there was indeed no one to help her in Yangzhou, relying on Li Kexio's former team, the local officials of the Qing dynasty, and the people sent by Mei, they could barely cope with the situation here. The reason why she was complaining was most likely due to a sense of crisis. It should be known that Agio was a princess, and the Golden Snake Battalion was the foundation of her power. It would not be easy for her to sit firmly in the position of the main wife. Naturally, she would think of all ways to rope in all the power she could. Seeing the smile at the corner of his mouth, Zhou suddenly became somewhat angry out of humiliation. "What are you smiling at?" "Ahem, it's not that you can't have her, but with her fiery, hot temperament, I don't have the final say. You have to rely on your charm to rope her in." Song Qingshu did not think that there was anything wrong with her idea. If she did not fight for anything, it would be too fake. He did not like his woman to wear a mask to live. That way, she would live tiredly, and he would also feel that it was fake. "If you keep her with me for a while, I will naturally be able to have a good relationship with her." A hint of confidence flashed across Zhou Zhiruo's pretty face. All right, she will stay with you." Song Qingshu did not doubt it. Back then, when she was very young, she was sent to the Amei sect. Very quickly, she gained the love of her master and a group of martial sisters. Of course, a petty and jealous woman like Ding Minjun was an exception. "By the way, where did you take Zhao Min?" Zhou Zhiruo suddenly asked. Song Qingshu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that these two were really born to be enemies. They would never forget each other at any time. "She first went with me to Liao. Recently, she has returned to the Riyang mansion. She is a little worried about her father." "Back to Mongolia?" Zhou Zhiruo's expression was very interesting. "In the end," she said bitterly, "in the end, she still got lucky." "What do you mean by lucky?" Song Qingshu was confused. Zhou Zhiruo looked at him with a faint smile. "Zhao Min knows so many of your secrets. If she tells you a little, your plans over these years will fall short of success. But you let her go back to Mongolia. It can only mean that she has become one of us." Song Qingshu's face heated up. He could only play dumb. "It's not what you think." However, Zhou Zhiruo did not believe his excuse at all. She could not help but sigh faintly. "I didn't expect that what even Zhang Wuji could not do back then would finally let you get what you wanted." Thinking of this, Song Qingshu could not help but feel a little proud. That was because he was indecisive. If he was a little more domineering, it would not be impossible. In the original work, Zhang Wuji once had a sweet dream of marrying all four beauties, but he only dared to fantasize about it. He never dared to put into practice. "I'm not as shameless as you." Zhou Zhiruo rolled her eyes at him. She could not help but recall the past, and she felt a little sad. "Brother Wuji is a good person. If there's a chance in the future, help me kill Ming Zun." Song Qingshu nodded. "Okay." Zhou Zhiruo seemed to think of something happy. Her whole body suddenly glowed. "By the way, the next time you see Zhao Min, ask her to kneel and serve me tea. Ask her to respectfully call me sister." Song Qingshu's breath stopped. "About this, you can tell her yourself." In fact, according to the etiquette of this world, as the first wife, Zhou Zhiruo's request was not too much. However, he did not need to think to know that Zhao Min would never agree to it. She can't beat me anyway." Zhou Zhiruo was a little proud. In her mind, She imagined the scene of Zhao Min serving her tea and calling her sister with a bitter face. Her mood immediately brightened. If not for the fact that she was busy, she might have immediately run to Mongolia to find Zhao Min's Song Qing wipe the cold sweat off his forehead. He thought to himself, no wonder Zhao Min insisted on teaching me martial arts. I must have been prepared for this move of hers. No, I have to go down and snatch people. Otherwise, Xia Quan's men will all be subdued by Yang Miaojin. Zhou Zhirua frowned. She realized a problem. She had heard of Yang Miaojin's reputation. If she had tens of thousands of men under her command, it was hard to say who would be the one to pull. Song Qingshu rolled his eyes. You haven't even digested Lu Gu's 30,000 men yet, and you're in a hurry to snatch Xia Quan's men? However, because of the Tianbuyang mansion, he didn't want Yang Miaojin to command too many men, so he didn't stop her. Zhou Zhirua had come prepared. In addition, Yangzhou was a regular army. Their personnel and organization were much more complete than the Redcoat Army. As a result, the number of people who surrendered was much higher than Yang Miaojin's. Yang Miaojin's main goal was revenge. In addition, they had made an agreement before, so she raised her eyebrows and didn't say anything. On the other hand, the yellow-robed woman couldn't stand it anymore. Whether it was her identity as the princess of the Song dynasty or the adopted daughter of the Tianbuyang mansion, she had to consider the imperial court first. In her opinion, the Redcoat Army was a volunteer army that could be used by the Song dynasty in the future. But now, it had become Song Qingshu's private army. She was naturally dissatisfied. Brother Song, you agreed to release Lu Gu soldiers back to their country, but now they're all in Yangzhou. Now you're even snatching the men from the Redcoat Army. You have so many troops under you. Who are you going to fight in the future? The yellow-robed woman's gaze was solid as she stared at Song Qingshu. Before Song Qingshu could answer, Zhou Zhirua smiled and said, I was wondering who it was. Isn't this the fairy who plays the flute, plays the zither, and scatters flower petals with a bunch of maidservants? In the past, she had to manage the affairs of the pugilistic world. Now, she even wants to meddle in the affairs of the country. It's inevitable that she's a bit tacky. Hearing the sarcasm in her words, the yellow-robed woman might have dismissed it with a laugh in the past. However, she wasn't in a good mood today. In addition, when she saw the yellow-robed woman snuggling up to Song Qingshu intimately, she felt strangely irritated. She couldn't help but retort, I was wondering who it was. So it's the one who lost to me in the past. Please remember the domain name of this book. Com. Wonderful Book House Mobile Version. Com. Chapter 2000. Hearing this, Zhou Zhirua's face turned cold. At the lion slaying convention, she had used the martial arts of the 9 manual to defeat all the heroes and obtain the title of #1 in the world, which was very awe-inspiring. In the end, this woman suddenly appeared and used the same martial arts to defeat her in front of the heroes of the world. The higher one was praised at the beginning. The worse one would fall later. However, at that time, Zhou Zhirua's attention was quickly distracted by Song Qingshu's matter. She had been chasing him all over the world, so she had no time to pay attention to the grudge between her and the yellow-robed woman. However, she still brooded over the crushing defeat that year. Now that she saw the other party, old and new hatred surged in her heart, and she could not help but stab the other party. Unexpectedly, the other party's counterattack was also sharp. Zhou Zhirua was secretly angry, but on the surface, she was very calm. As the saying goes, a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at in a new light. At that time, I was only attacked by you and accidentally fell into your trap. Now that we fight again, it is not certain who will win. At the lion slaughtering convention, the yellow-robed woman did attack, but the main reason was that she understood the martial arts of the 9 manual too well. On the other hand, Zhou Zhirua had learned the accelerated method, so she was naturally restrained by the complete version. At that time, she was still inexperienced and suddenly encountered such a situation and panicked. So, she was defeated so easily. In the past 2 or 3 years, she had concentrated on practicing the 9 manual and was no longer the same as before. with Song Qingshu's occasional guidance. Even the shortcomings of her internal energy had grown a lot because of her dual cultivation with her lover. Now, she was naturally not afraid of the yellow-robed woman. Is that so? Then I will have to experience your skills. The yellow-robed woman had a disdainful smile on her lips. Obviously, she did not think that the other party's closed-door practice of the 9E manual could compare to her, the last disciple of Huang Shan. Zhou Zhuo raised her eyebrows and was about to attack, but Song Qingshu hurriedly blocked in front of her. What are you all doing? Do you want to be laughed at by so many people? They were still collecting Xia Quan's subordinates, so it would be improper for them to fight at this time. Although he didn't think that Zhou Zhuo would lose, the yellow-robed woman's martial arts were not to be underestimated. If there was an accident, it would be a devastating blow to her prestige. It should be known that Zhou Zhuo was no longer the leader of Jianghu, but she was also the leader of Yangzhou. Zhou Zhuo clearly understood the meaning of his words. She knew that it was not wise to start a fight at this time, so she could only snort and stop talking. Song Qingshu turned to the yellow-robed woman and said, "Miss Yang, every time I see you, you always look aloof and detached. Why are you like this today?" In the end, he did not say the word lose composure. The yellow-robed woman also realized that she was acting a bit strange today, but she wasn't willing to admit defeat and say anything. She faintly said, "There are always a few days a month when a woman's temper isn't too good." Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face as he wondered if she was having her period. The yellow-robed woman's hair stood on end under his stare. She was slightly annoyed. "I only said a few words about your wife. Is there a need to look at me like that?" After that, Yang Miaozhen and Zhou Zhuo began to organize their subordinates to accept the surrender. Everyone had a lot to do, but Song Qingshu and the yellow-robed woman had nothing to do. The yellow-robed woman felt a bit awkward under his stare. She said, "The situation here has been settled. When do you plan to leave?" She had come to save the Yang family's bloodline. Now that the threat around Yang Miaozhen had been eliminated and the Red Coat Army had been preserved, it had far exceeded her initial expectations. Naturally, she began to think about the emperor. "Wait for 2 days." Song Qingshu casually replied. The yellow-robed woman frowned and said, "We've already wasted a lot of time here. I'm worried that we'll miss the trip to Wudong." Song Qingshu smiled and said, "It wasn't easy for me to reunite with my wife. I can't be like you the Great, passing by 3 times without entering, can I?" The yellow-robed woman calmly replied, "If the Prince of Qi wishes to reunite with his wife, as an outsider, I naturally would not dare to obstruct him. However, I do not have the Prince of Qi's good attitude. I dare not delay any longer and will take my leave here." Hearing her suddenly change the way she addressed him, Song Qingshu wondered what was wrong with her today. "Hey, although your martial art are not bad, if something really happens there, it will definitely be earth-shattering. I'm afraid that even with your martial arts, you won't be able to participate." The yellow-robed woman's figure paused. She thought about how even her unfathomable master was uncertain about this trip. Before leaving, he had repeatedly urged her to bring Song Qingshu to Wudong. If she were to return alone, how could she be worthy of his years of nurturing? "All right, I'll wait for you." The yellow-robed woman changed her mind. Why do these words sound so ambiguous? Could it be that this young lady has designs on a married man? At some point in time, Zhou Zhuo had returned and happened to hear these words. Immediately, she felt somewhat dissatisfied. That vixen Zhao Min was one thing, but now even a woman wanted to share the spoils. Thinking about how she had gained more and more sisters over the years, Zhou Zhuo's complexion turned somewhat ugly. She thought that the old days were better. Although at that time, Qingshu did not have much ability, he was still wholeheartedly devoted to her. However, she quickly changed her mind. If it was the old Qingshu, she probably would not have liked him. The yellow-robed woman's face reddened, and she reflexively retorted, "A married man? I don't know who Sect Master Zhou is talking about." "Oh, I almost forgot. The last time I saw Sect Master Zhou, you seemed to be exchanging flirtatious glances with the Ming Dynasty's great cult Master Zhang. Why are you so intimate with the Prince of Qi now?" Hearing this, Zhou Zhirua sneered. Back then, Your Excellency also had an unclear relationship with Zhang Wuji. Now, you are circling around my husband's side. Is this how the fairy praised by the Jianghu should behave? Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. These two must be innately incompatible. Why did they oppose each other so fiercely the moment they met? Previously, she and Zhao Min were probably just like this. The yellow-robed woman was furious. I have only met Zhang Jiaozhi twice. How is there an unclear relationship? Zhou Zhirua had a strange expression on her face. Why are you in such a hurry to explain? Could it be that you really have designs on my husband? To the side, Song Qing-shu looked down and did not say a word to avoid drawing fire to himself. He originally thought that the yellow-robed woman would fly into a rage out of humiliation. Unexpectedly, she suddenly smiled sweetly. So what if it is? Zhou Zhirua did not expect such a reply. Before she could get angry, the yellow-robed woman spoke again. Sect Master Zhou, why don't we make a bet? What bet? Zhou Zhirua raised her eyebrows. Tonight, at the third watch period, we'll find a place with no one around. If you win, I'll immediately disappear. If I win, I'll lend your man to me for a few days. For some reason, the yellow-robed woman changed the way she addressed her and immediately felt much better. Zhou Zhirua frowned. Why do you want to lend him? Sect Master Zhou doesn't need to worry about how I use him. Just tell me, will you bet or not? The yellow-robed woman asked. Zhou Zhirua fiercely glared at Song Qing-shu and thought that there was something wrong with the two of them. Song Qing-shu was speechless. This was really an undeserved disaster. The yellow-robed woman clearly heard that he was going to accompany his family for a few days, so she planned to start with Zhou Zhirua. If she agreed, he would not be able to use this excuse to delay. These things could have been said directly. Why did she have to say such ambiguous words? What did she mean by borrow? Bet, of course I'll bet. If it was someone else, even if it was Zhao Min or Zhou Zhirua, they would not be so irrational. However, facing the yellow-robed woman, she was still brooding over her defeat that year. Moreover, she was not afraid of losing her dignity in front of her subordinates by having a private duel in the middle of the night. It's a deal. The yellow-robed woman's lips curled up slightly. She was obviously proud of herself. It's a deal. Zhou Zhirua's face also burst with confidence. Song Qing-shu was about to speak when the yellow-robed woman glared at him. Don't take sides and don't give her advice. She admired Song Qing-shu's martial arts. After all, he was an existence that could compete with her master. If he casually gave some advice to Zhou Zhirua, she was afraid that she would be in trouble tonight. At this time, Zhou Zhirua also said, Qing-shu, don't worry. I don't need your help. I can beat her. After saying this, she turned around and left. She did not stay by her lover's side to show fairness. Song Qing-shu knew that this was a knot in her heart. Only she could solve it through a battle, so he no longer tried to persuade her. Although the yellow-robed woman spoke with contempt, she did not dare to relax at all. She also left to find a secluded place to recuperate and prepare for the battle at night. At this time, Yang Miaozhen suddenly appeared beside Song Qing-shu. What's wrong? Have you become a loner? Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. It seemed that whether it was Zhou Zhirua or the yellow-robed woman, in order to accumulate power to the peak, he was afraid that they would not come to him before this. Yang Miaozhen's eyes suddenly flashed a trace of inexplicable provocation. Then come to my place tonight. Song Qing-shu was startled. Yang Miaozhen looked at Zhou Zhirua's figure from afar and snorted softly. She just robbed so many of my subordinates. I will also secretly steal her husband and let her taste what it feels like. It's going to be the new year soon. I wish everyone a happy new year. Chapter 2001. Song Qing-shu was confused. You can take revenge like this? Yang Miaozhen looked at him with disdain. Stop talking nonsense. Are you coming or not? Just say it. After that night, he spent the rest of the time on the road and dealing with Xia Quan's matter. He didn't have time to continue their relationship. In his mind, the charming and gentle scene in the cave and those unparalleled long legs appeared. Song Qing-shu felt his heart beating wildly. He swallowed with difficulty. Come. Yang Miaojin raised her eyebrows proudly. It was obvious that she was satisfied with his reaction. She didn't say anything else and turned to leave. Her footsteps seemed to be much lighter. Song Qing-shu regretted his words as soon as he said them. He felt that what he did was not right. He felt that he had let Zhiruo down. Hence, he went around looking for her to make up for it. Who knew that Zhiruo wouldn't see him at all? She said that she didn't want to give anyone a handle on her. Song Qing-shu knew her temperament. She was soft on the outside but hard on the inside. This time, he wanted to use his own strength to defeat his opponent. Hence, he didn't disturb her anymore. He met with some of Yangzhou's subordinates. He had been a hands-off shopkeeper for too long. In the end, he still had to show his face. Those people clearly still had a deep impression of him when he descended from the heavens on the battlefield. Even if they were promoted later on, his reputation still reverberated like thunder in their ears. When they saw him, each and every one of them were incomparably excited. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. Even though Sang Fei Hong's Five Lakes sect was considered a low-class sect by the world, it was still very useful. His deeds had been publicized by them from all over the world, making him look more like an immortal than a human. Of course, he didn't explain much. As a leader, having the halo of a legend was definitely more beneficial than harmful. For example, Emperor Gaozu of Han wanted to kill the White Snake. Other emperors often said that their mothers dreamed of the sun in their arms. What he had done was real. Naturally, the effect was better. After meeting the people from Yangzhou, he made arrangements for Zhang Lin, Lu Qingfu, Peng Yabin, and the other surrendered generals under Xia Quan. Finally, he called for the people from the Red Coat Army to invite them to a banquet. Zhou Zhiruo and the yellow-robed woman did not attend the banquet. Clearly, they were making their final preparations for tonight's battle. Most of the people at the banquet were men. Everyone liked to eat and drink. At first, they were not familiar with each other, so they were a little restrained. But after a few rounds of wine, the atmosphere suddenly became warm. Song Qing-shu was the target of everyone's toast. He had just subdued this group of people, and he was worried that rejecting them would disappoint them, so he basically didn't reject anyone. However, no matter how good his alcohol tolerance was, he could not withstand the other party's continuous toasts. In the end, he felt tipsy and could only use his inner force to secretly force the alcohol out. These people of the Lulin Forest did not know that there was such a miraculous Nigong in the world. Seeing that he was not drunk even after 1,000 cups, they all prostrated themselves in admiration. It was Yang Miaojin who felt sorry for him. Later, she worried that something was wrong with his body, so she hurried to help him drink. Seeing this, the men immediately began to make a scene. "Fourth lady, I've never seen you drink wine for anyone before, but this time you're feeling sorry for the Golden Snake King. Are you in love?" The Golden Snake King is handsome and unrestrained, and his martial arts are matchless. Which woman wouldn't like him? "Fourth lady, I'm afraid your pear blossom spear won't work against the Golden Snake King. No matter how powerful the pear blossom spear is, it's still a woman. How can she resist the Golden Snake King's overlord spear?" This group of men mingled in the Lulin Forest and usually spoke without restraint, not to mention that they had drunk so much. As a result, their words became more and more explicit. "All of you shut up." Yang Miaojin fiercely glared at that person. However, she was already as beautiful as a peach, and now her cheeks were even more beautiful under the light of the bonfire. Not only did this glare not have its usual deterrent effect, but it also made many men fall head over heels for her. However, these people were self-aware and only dared to fantasize about her. None of them had the courage to actually provoke her. Yang Miaojin suddenly turned around and bowed to Song Qing-shu. "Although I lost to you in the last Golden Snake meet, you used some tricks. I'm not convinced, so I'd like to consult you again with the Pear Blossom Spear. I hope you won't be stingy with it." She was dressed in red and had a tall figure. Standing in the middle of the field, she looked like a burning rose. The group of men in the field immediately became excited. Cheers and whistles filled the air. For a moment, the atmosphere was extremely heated. Speaking of which, it was strange. Although Yang Miaojin was beautiful, she never put on makeup. Even her hair was simply combed to the back of her head and tied into a braid. She also had a tough personality. Logically speaking, she should not fit the alluring and coquettish look that most men liked. However, her skin was very white, even whiter than the average woman. Although her clothes were conservative, her slender and delicate neck and the patch of white skin between her collars could not be covered. The more conservative her clothes were, the more seductive her skin was. It was as if her skin had an inexhaustible charm that attracted the gazes of men. In addition to her strength, her arrogance, all these factors combined together, causing her heroic aura to exude a unique charm. Whenever men saw her, they would have an uncontrollable urge to conquer her, press her under their bodies, and ravage her. Many of the men in the Red Coat Army were bandits. It wasn't that no one dared to make a move on her. It was just that after her invincible pear blossom spear pierced through them, no one dared to act blindly without thinking. Although they didn't dare to make a move, they couldn't stop the thoughts in their minds. Zhang Lin's words were right. There wasn't a single man in the Red Coat Army who didn't want to ride this beautiful rouge horse. It was a pity that her martial arts were too high. It was so high that no one in the entire Red Coat Army was a match for her. Now that they finally had the chance to see her lose to a man, everyone was naturally excited. Looking at Yang Miaojin in the middle of the field, Song Qingshu was a little confused. They had just fought a few days ago. Why would they fight again in front of everyone? If he were to defeat her again, wouldn't it be difficult for her to step down? However, seeing the hope in her eyes, Song Qingshu suddenly understood. The relationship between the two originated from Li Quan's pot of tea. It wasn't convenient for him to say it out loud. What happened in the cave that night was even more likely to be an illicit affair. Even though Yang Miaojin didn't really care about such things, no woman was willing to be secretive all the time. Hence, she needed a legitimate excuse to let everyone know about the progress of their relationship. She didn't need to act sneakily like before. If word of this got out, it wouldn't look good on everyone. What else could be more justifiable than having a martial arts duel in front of a large crowd and gradually developing feelings for each other? After understanding all of this, Song Qingshu stood up and walked over. I've long heard that the pear blossom spear is invincible. Today, I finally have the honor of witnessing the fourth lady's elegance. Seeing him enter the field, the corner of Yang Miaojin's lips curled up slightly. Hearing his words, she said softly, I won't hold back. You don't have to hold back either. She was very clear about their martial arts. Even if she used her full strength, it would be difficult for her to injure her opponent. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. Don't cry when you get hit later. Yang Miaojin lightly snorted and a cold light flashed in her hand. The pear blossom spear was like a dragon emerging from the sea. In an instant, it enveloped all of her opponent's vital acupuncture points. The originally blazing bonfire seemed to be suppressed by an invisible force, instantly becoming bright and dark. There was no lack of experts in the field. When they saw this, they couldn't help but change their expressions. If it was them, they most likely wouldn't be able to dodge this spear. The people of the Red Coat Army already knew of Yang Miaojin's abilities. Naturally, they didn't need to mention it. In the Yangzhou Army, there were actually people who didn't believe that a woman like her could shamelessly boast that her pear blossom spear was invincible. But now that they had seen it, they finally understood that the rumors were not false. One by one, everyone opened their eyes wide. They wanted to see how Song Qingshu would deal with this. They only saw his sleeve lightly shake. It was as if there was a universe in his sleeve. In an instant, the sky full of spear shadows became invisible. Yang Miaojin felt an enormous force coming from her hand. She was slightly startled and hastily pushed off the ground. Her body was like an arrow that had left a bow. She raised her spear and rushed forward. She planned to use this force to break the shackles of her opponent's sleeve. Song Qingshu knew that his opponent was a first-class expert of the present age. If he used all of his strength, it was very likely that his sleeve would be torn to shreds. At that time, it would be very indecent to expose his arm. Therefore, He loosened his grip on her spear. However, his right hand seemed to come out of nowhere and rested on her shoulder. Yang Miaojin was greatly alarmed. She shook the spear in her hand, and pear blossoms appeared on her shoulder. Even with Song Qingshu's abilities, he didn't dare to directly touch these pear blossoms. He could only dodge to the side. When Yang Miaojin felt that her opponent's hand had left her shoulder, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, she understood that her opponent had already held back. If that hand had contained internal energy, she would have already been seriously injured. Could it be that the disparity between me and him is really that big? Although she had lost to her opponent at the Golden Snake meeting, she didn't think that her opponent's martial arts were much higher than hers. Now that she had bitterly cultivated for so long, she thought that she would have the strength to fight. However, reality had given her a heavy blow. However, this had instead stimulated the unwillingness to admit defeat in her heart. She lightly bit her red lips. Her pear blossom spear was executed flawlessly. Her entire body advanced and retreated. Her red robes and crimson skirt seemed to have transformed into a red cloud. It was very difficult for the crowd to see her figure clearly. Song Qingshu's entire body's movements were much more relaxed. It was as if he was strolling in the forest. Everyone could see his every move clearly. Many people broke out in cold sweat for him. However, they didn't know why. Under the opponent's storm-like attacks, none of the pear blossoms that filled the sky had touched his clothes. It should be about time. With a thought, Song Qingshu's left palm suddenly turned into a claw. He casually hooked it out and caught his opponent's wrist. Yang Miaojin was startled and immediately retreated. Song Qingshu took advantage of the situation and pushed lightly. His inner strength was extremely vigorous. However, this time, he used a gentle force and didn't have any intention of harming her. Even so, Yang Miaojin's footing was still unstable. Just as she was about to fall, Song Qingshu's right arm reached out and caught her in his embrace. The spectators cheered and whistled. Immediately, it was a noisy scene. Yang Miaojin originally had a generous personality. However, being hugged by him like this in front of so many people, her face couldn't help but turn red. "Hurry and let go of me." Song Qingshu lowered his head to look at the beauty in his embrace. He saw that her hair was slightly sweaty and her chest was heaving up and down. Her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. She looked a bit more delicate and beautiful than usual. He couldn't help but laugh. "Call me good big brother, and I'll let you go." "Good big brother, good big brother." When the others heard this, they couldn't help but shout "good big brother" and "good big brother" nonstop. They all looked like they wanted the world to be in chaos. If it was in private, Yang Miaojin would have already shouted it. However, in this situation, in front of so many people, how could she say it? She anxiously kicked at his waist, hoping that he would let go of her. Song Qingshu raised his hand to block it. With a backhand hook, he caught her right leg. It sounded easy, but Yang Miaojin could use spear techniques with both her hands and feet. If it wasn't for his martial arts reaching a level where he could use them as he pleased, how could he catch her attack? "Hey, if you break my waist, what will happen to the happiness of the rest of your life?" Song Qingshu whispered in her ear. Sensing that her waist was accumulating strength, Song Qingshu knew that her other leg was about to attack. He had fought with her before, so he knew that her other leg was about to make a move. Therefore, he grabbed her ankle and pushed it upwards. Yang Miaojin cried out in surprise. Her two long legs had already been pressed into a split. How could she make another move? If it were any other woman, they would have been strained. Only Song Qingshu, who had personally experienced her flexibility, could suppress her and make her unable to fight back at the same time. Song Qingshu put her ankle on his shoulder under the cover of his drunkenness. He moved closer to her and said, "Aren't you going to call me good big brother?" Seeing the ambiguous posture between the two, the surrounding people all swallowed their saliva. How could they not want to suppress the fourth lady like this? Unfortunately, they also knew that they didn't have the ability to do so. They could only wave the flag and cheer for Song Qingshu. The fourth lady's flexibility is unparalleled. She can actually make such a posture. It seems that our fourth lady is really going to fall. He, the Golden Snake King, is elegant, and his methods of picking up girls are even more admirable. Ah, I only hope that the Golden Snake King will be gentler with my goddess tonight. Tisk, is that even possible? If it were you, you would probably want to stuff your balls in there. Damn, lower your voices. Their martial arts are so high. What if they hear you? Do you want to die? These people's words faintly reached Yang Yaozhen's ears. She knew that if she kept this embarrassing posture, she didn't know what dirty thoughts these people would have in their minds. She could only quietly say, "Good big brother, let me go." Hearing her coquettish and angry words, Song Qingshu's bones almost melted. He also knew that this was somewhat inappropriate, so he loosened his hand and took a step back. "Fourth lady, thank you for letting me win." Yang Yaozhen's cheeks were flushed, but she soon cupped her hands in front of her chest and said, "I am no match for you. This time, I wholeheartedly accept my defeat." At the same time, she secretly made up her mind to privately ask him how his martial arts had improved so rapidly. Song Qingshu smiled and said, "Since I lost, there should be a prize. Why don't you block the bar for me?" Yang Yaozhen knew that he was looking for a reason to increase the ambiguous relationship between them. She secretly sighed that he really understood what she was thinking. She nodded and said, "Okay." Hearing that the fourth lady was going to block the bar, whether it was the Redcoat Army or the Yangzhou Army, everyone became even more rowdy. No matter if they were drunk or not, they all came to join in the fun. On the surface, they were toasting to Song Qingshu, but in reality, they wanted to get the high and mighty fourth lady drunk. Yang Yaozhen had mingled with men for so many years, yet she was able to maintain her integrity. In addition to her high martial arts, it was also because she had never been drunk before. But no matter how much she could drink, after being toasted by so many people, her fair cheeks quickly turned red. In the end, she even felt a wave of dizziness. She rolled her eyes at the man next to her, thinking that this time I'm going to die because of you. The first day of the new year, I wish everyone a happy new year. Chapter 2002. Song Qingshu was worried that she was really drunk, so he sat next to her and held her hand under the cover of the table. A gentle inner force was transferred into her body. Yang Yaozhen was startled. Suddenly, she heard his secret voice sending, "Don't resist. Let the genuine qi flow naturally in your body." Yang Yaozhen nodded slightly and completely let go of her defense, allowing the other party's genuine qi to flow in her body. Song Qingshu was a little surprised. He thought that she would subconsciously guard against it, but he didn't expect her to trust him so much. It should be known that the masters in Jianghu would almost never let other people's inner force enter their body. Under such circumstances, if the other party had evil intentions, a slight attack would cause serious injuries. 8 to 9 out of 10 would kill her on the spot. Yang Yaozhen only felt a warm heat flowing in her body. Suddenly, her fingertips felt cold. She looked down and found that drops of crystal-clear water were flowing out of her fingertips. She was stunned for a moment before she realized that the other party had helped her to force the wine out of her body. She couldn't help but be amazed. She had heard that Dali's six-pulse divine swordsman had this kind of alcohol-forcing technique, but she didn't expect him to know it too. As a top master, she also understood that as long as she followed the diagram, she would be able to cultivate the sword qi. She thought that the other party had actually unreservedly shown her the route of genuine qi circulation in her body. Did he completely treat her as one of his own? Thinking of this, she, who had always been bold and generous, couldn't help but blush. Fortunately, she was now drunk, so she wasn't afraid of being seen by others. The wine she drank could be forced out of her body, so Yang Yaozhen didn't have any scruples. Soon, the generals in the hall were all drunk. Seeing that only a few of them were sober, Yang Yaozhen suddenly used her shoulder to nudge the man next to her. "It's about time. Let's go." "Where?" Song Qingshu asked. Yang Yaozhen turned around and looked at him with a faint smile. "I realize that you look like a gentleman on the surface, but you're a bad person behind the scenes." Song Qingshu was speechless. "I just forced you to drink, and now you're talking about me like this? You're burning bridges after crossing the river. Yang Miaozhen's almond-shaped eyes widened. You still have a nerve to say that? There's clearly such a method to not get drunk even after 1,000 cups. Yet you insist on pretending to be drunk. If I wasn't deceived by you, why would I foolishly come here to drink for you? Isn't it just for the atmosphere? Song Qing-shu looked around at the people who were drunk and lying on the ground. If they knew from the beginning that I can't get drunk, what's the point of drinking? Yes, yes, yes. You wanted to win people's hearts, but I almost made a fool of myself. Yang Miaozhen thought of how she almost made a fool of herself and suddenly felt her teeth itch. Song Qing-shu smiled and held her hand. If I didn't do this, how would I know that you care about me so much? You're afraid that I'll get drunk. It's bad enough that you don't drink. Yang Miaozhen's eyes twinkled. There was less anger in them and more charm. You clearly know where I want you to go, but you want me to say it again. Song Qing-shu looked at her. Due to the alcohol, her snow-white skin had turned a light pink, making her look even more charming. I just want to hear the goddess in the hearts of all the men in the Red Coat Army personally invite me. Yang Miaozhen's eyes revealed a hint of mockery. Why don't you invite me to your tent? Song Qing-shu held his breath. His tent was arranged together with Zhou Zhuo's. If he brought other women in, wouldn't it become a charaba? Look at how scared you are. Yang Miaozhen chuckled and hooked her finger at him. Come to my room. I don't want to be in the wilderness with you anymore. It feels weird. Song Qing-shu's heart was pounding. Who said she was a tigress? Who said she was a rouge? She was clearly a seductive vixen. The two of them arrived at her tent one after another. Yang Miaozhen waved her hand and gestured for the guards to move further away. These guards were all female soldiers that she had trained. It was naturally more convenient for them to take care of her than the male soldiers. When they saw that their master had brought a man back for the first time, their eyes widened. Some of them recognized Song Qing-shu and could not help but look at him strangely. What are you looking at? Everyone stand guard outside. Don't let anyone near. I have something important to discuss with the Golden Snake King, Yang Miaozhen said with a red face. Yes, the group of female soldiers all dispersed. They thought to themselves, who are you trying to fool? You brought a man back in the middle of the night. Both of them were drunk and the fire in their eyes was about to devour each other. However, although they complained, they were happy for her in their hearts. They thought that she had a good relationship with her new master and would have a good home in the future. Meanwhile, when Song Qing-shu and Yang Miaozhen entered the tent, they looked at each other and did not say anything. They suddenly hugged each other, leaving only their heavy breathing in the room. After a long time, Song Qing-shu bit her ear and said dryly, I want to do it like just now. The posture of the two of them fighting just now appeared in his mind. He only felt that his whole body was about to explode. Yang Miaozhen lifted her right leg and directly did a split on the spot. She put her perfectly round and straight long leg on his shoulder. Her almond-shaped eyes became watery, and she smiled foolishly. Like this. Song Qing-shu could not bear it anymore. He roared and pounced on her. The subordinate who had a crush on you just now told me to be gentle with you. Bah, don't listen to him. After an unknown period of time, Song Qing-shu got off the bed with weak steps. He secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, I have a divine skill to protect my body. Otherwise, I would not have lost in the competition, but in the bed. That would be so embarrassing. As he put on his clothes, he turned around and asked, Are you really not going to watch them fight? Yang Miaozhen was lying on the bed, revealing only her messy long hair and her snow-white shoulders with many red marks. She said weakly, I don't even want to move a finger right now. You can go by yourself. Hearing her words, Song Qing-shu felt proud for no reason. Last time, you can say that it was your first time. This time, there is no excuse, right? Yang Miaozhen grabbed the pillow beside her and threw it at him. Today, I drank too much. Let's find a chance to fight again next time. Song Qing-shu walked out of the tent with a proud expression. He sighed and said, No matter how many times we fight, you will still lose. Sigh. I've been looking for a worthy opponent all my life, but I can't find one. It's really lonely and embarrassing. Yang Miaozhen, who was under the bed, gritted her teeth. But after a long time, she sighed. She did not expect that she could not beat him in martial arts. She could not even beat him in the battlefield. In the end, she could only struggle to hold on, but his physical strength seemed to be endless. Meanwhile, Song Qing-shu came to a valley a few miles away from the camp. A girl in a yellow dress stood on a tree, and a woman in a white dress stood on another tree a few feet away. Both of them had excellent lightness skills. They stood on the branches of the tree without moving an inch, only their clothes fluttering in the cold wind. The two women had graceful figures. Now, the faint moonlight shone through their clothes, casting a holy halo on their bodies. They looked like fairies from heaven. "You're late." The two women looked back at him and said at the same time. Hearing each other's words, they both frowned. Song Qing-shu shrunk back guiltily and smiled awkwardly. "I drank a bit too much with those people over there. Where's the fourth lady?" The girl in the yellow dress looked to his side and asked in confusion. Song Qing-shu said calmly. That group of men saw that she was beautiful, so they all urged her to drink like crazy. She got drunk and went back to rest. Drunk? A trace of worry flashed in the girl's eyes. "Don't let others take advantage of you. Don't worry. I've already sent her back to the camp. She'll be fine with her guards." Song Qing-shu thought to himself, "I've taken advantage of her. Does that count?" Zhou Zhuo snorted. "No wonder I'm late." Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. He really cannot explain this. Zhou Zhuo was obviously just speaking casually. Her attention quickly returned to the girl in the yellow dress. "Are we still going to fight? Are you worried that if Yang Miaozhen doesn't come, Qing-shu will be unfair as the referee?" The yellow-clothed woman glanced at Song Qing-shu and said with a faint smile, "That won't happen. I trust young Master Song's character." Seeing the girl's gentle eyes looking at her husband, as if there was something else, Zhou Zhuo snorted. "If that's the case, then let's begin." The girl in the yellow dress's expression became serious. "Please." As soon as she finished speaking, a green shadow flashed and a long whip came toward her. The girl in the yellow dress hurriedly jumped back to avoid it. The top of the tree she had been standing on had already been smashed by the whip. The girl in the yellow dress was secretly angry. She thought to herself, "Since you're so ruthless, don't blame me. Anyway, Song Qing-shu is here. With his martial arts, even if something happens to us, he should be able to resolve it." Her thoughts flashed. In this short period of time, the opponent's long whip moved rapidly. It was the white python whip technique of the 9-in manual. The girl in the yellow dress hurriedly retreated to the side. Zhou Zhiruo's whip technique was incomparably strange. In 3 moves, she had already trapped her. She said coldly, "If I take your life now, you won't accept it. Bring me a weapon." The girl in the yellow dress smiled. "Why would I need a weapon to deal with you?" After saying that, her whole body suddenly became as soft as a noodle. With a twist, she escaped from the opponent's grasp. Tendon shrink bone technique. Song Qing-shu also knew the 9-in manual, so he naturally recognized the technique. But at this moment, the scene of the girl in the yellow dress twisting and twisting appeared in his mind. His expression was somewhat strange. Even her chest can shrink. This woman is really scary. Zhou also did not expect that the girl in the yellow dress would be able to escape so easily. But her long whip had already been trained to the point that it was like an extension of her arm. With a flick of her wrist, the soft whip moved like a nimble snake, heading straight for the girl's chest. Although Song Qing-shu knew that the girl in the yellow dress would be able to avoid it, he still sucked in a breath of cold air. He thought that if her chest really collapsed, it would really be a waste of God's gift. The girl in the yellow dress tiptoed, and like a butterfly, she dodged the long whip. Who would have thought that the soft whip would turn halfway and strike her back? But the girl in the yellow dress seemed to have expected it. She reached behind her and grabbed the opponent's long whip. She was familiar with the 9-in manual, so naturally, she knew the various variations of the white python whip technique by heart. She planned to use this opportunity to pull the opponent over and attack within a few feet of her. But as soon as she grabbed the long whip, her expression changed. She hurriedly let go of the long whip. Looking at the red mark on her palm, she was shocked When I fought her at the lion-slaying assembly last time, she learned a quick method that emphasized more on moves, so her internal energy was congenitally insufficient. I didn't expect that her internal energy had already grown to such a level. Chapter 2003. The girl in yellow did not dare to be careless anymore. She was on high alert and used her exquisite body technique to protect herself. The whip in Zhou Zhuo's hand was like a soft silk, as if it had no weight at all. Her body moved left and right, advancing and retreating, drifting around the girl in yellow. Song Qing nodded to himself. Zhou Zhuo's body technique and whip technique were like the wind blowing the willow catkin, like the duckweed in the water. It was truly out of this world. He felt like he was in a dream. He did not expect that after not seeing her for a while, her martial arts had improved so much. In fact, this was not surprising at all. Zhou Zhuo was originally the most outstanding disciple of the Amei sect in this generation. It was just that the martial arts of the Amei sect always progressed step by step. Although her martial arts were outstanding among the younger generation, it was difficult for her to compete in the whole of Jianghu. However, the 90 manual was equivalent to giving her a cheat code. With her intelligence, obtaining the 90 manual was like adding wings to a tiger. Of course, before the lion-slaying gathering, she went astray and only wanted to learn quickly. Therefore, her moves were strange and fancy. Against ordinary martial arts masters, it was not enough. Later, she suddenly came to her senses and started practicing the 9-yin manual from the basics. Now, her martial arts had a qualitative leap compared to before. The last time he saw her, she had already mastered the 9-yin manual. This time, he found that she seemed to have faintly merged the 9-yin manual with the martial arts of the Amei sect. Although she had not mastered it, she had entered a new realm. No wonder the girl in yellow was careless and suffered a small loss. However, the girl in yellow was Huang Shang's last disciple. With his personal guidance, her proficiency in the 9-yin manual would be higher than Zhou Zhuo. Her whole body was swift and agile. Originally, the 9-yin manual's martial arts were inclined to be strange, but when she used it, she was like a fairy descending to the world. Her every movement was filled with the air of a fairy. Her footsteps were light, and before she knew it, she was already getting closer and closer to Zhou Zhuo. Suddenly, with a flick of her wrist, she snatched the long whip from her opponent's hand. During the lion-slaughtering assembly, she had also snatched the whip from her opponent's hand in the same way. Then, she had used her elbow to strike the vital acupuncture point on her chest, and then used the 9-yin white bone claw to restrain her. This time, it worked again, but she was not happy because it was too easy to snatch the long whip, so easy that it was as if the other party had deliberately let her snatch it. From the exchange of blows just now, she had already determined that Zhou Zhuo's martial arts were definitely not below hers. There was no reason for her to be able to seize it so easily. However, although she was shocked, she did not panic. At such a close distance, it was just right for her to display the full power of the 9-yin white bone claw. Although her opponent also knew this martial art, she did not think that his attainments in this aspect would be better than hers. Changing his palm into a claw, the 9-yin white bone claw instantly clawed at Zhou Zhuo's vital acupoints. However, a snow-white light suddenly exploded in front of her, and she felt a copious amount of sharp intent that was difficult to resist. The yellow-robed woman was greatly alarmed, and she hastily retreated. "Thank you for letting me win," Zhou Zhuo said indifferently as she sheathed her sword. The yellow-robed woman's hands hung by her side, and a drop of blood fell from her slender and translucent fingers. However, she did not care at all, and her gaze was fixed on the sword in her hand. Heavenly sword? Correct. After defeating her longtime opponent, Zhou Zhuo's ice-cold face could not help but reveal a hint of happiness. The yellow-robed woman was somewhat dissatisfied. Relying on a divine weapon, isn't it a bit unfair to win? If she had known from the beginning that her opponent would use Heavenly Sword, how could she have lost so easily? This time, She had focused all her attention on guarding against her opponent's white python whip technique and nining white bone claw. How could she have expected that her opponent was only using them as a cover and was actually hiding a killing move, Heavenly Sword? Zhou Zhiruo sneered. Just now, I gave you the chance to take out a weapon, but you insisted on fighting me empty-handed. Who can you blame for that? The yellow-robed woman felt bitter in her heart. In truth, with her martial arts, it did not matter whether she took out a weapon or not. Although her 10 fingers could not be said to be as hard as steel, they were not far off. Against her opponent's weapon, she would not be at a disadvantage. However, these weapons did not include peerless divine weapons like Heavenly Sword and the Dragon Saber. At this time, Song Qingshu took a step forward and said, Miss Yang, just now, Zhou already held back. I believe you also know that. The yellow-robed woman bit her lip, but did not refute. Just now, if Zhou Zhiruo had not held back, she could have used the sharpness of Heavenly Sword to cut off one of her fingers in that instant. Song Qingshu continued, on the battlefield, in a battle of life and death, strategy is also a form of strength. If Miss Yang is entangled in this trap, you may suffer greatly in the future. The yellow-robed woman was frightened. She was indeed somewhat indignant. In truth, even if Zhou Zhiruo's martial arts had advanced by leaps and bounds, even if she had the Heavenly Sword, if they fought fair and square, she was still confident that she would not lose. Now that she heard Song Qingshu's words, she suddenly understood. Thank you, Big Brother Song, for your guidance. Then she bowed to Zhou Zhiruo. Sect Leader Zhou, this time I have lost. However, the next time we meet, it will not be so easy for you to defeat me. Zhou Zhiruo indifferently said, Next time, let's talk about next time. The yellow-robed woman knew that Zhou Zhiruo did not like her because of what had happened at the lion slaughtering convention, so she did not mind. She turned to Song Qingshu and said, Big Brother Song, since I have lost this bet, I will leave first. I hope that Big Brother Song will remember your promise. In 2 days, you will set off for Wudong as soon as possible. With that, she floated away. Looking at her back, Song Qingshu wondered, is she going to leave just like that? Is she not going to go back and say goodbye to Yang Yaojin? Oh no, if she sees Yang Yaojin lying naked on the bed, no matter how pure she is, she will know what has happened. Huh, even if she knows, so what? Why do I feel so guilty? She has already left, yet you are still looking? Zhou Zhiruo had appeared beside him at some point. She had a teasing look on her face. If you cannot bear to part with her, then go after her. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Zhiruo must be joking. I am just a little worried about her safety on this trip. Her kung fu is so high. What is there to worry about? Zhou Zhiruo pursed her lips. She even called me Big Brother Song. She called me that so intimately in front of me. She is purposely trying to anger me. She mimicked the tone of the yellow-robed woman and imitated it perfectly. Song Qingshu was speechless. At the same time, he felt a little strange. Just now, the yellow-robed woman had indeed changed the way she addressed him. Was it really as Zhiruo said? Sigh, women are so scary. They always set traps. By the way, what did you promise her? Zhou Zhiruo suddenly remembered what the yellow-robed woman had said before she left. She asked suspiciously, I did not promise her. I promised her master. As the two of them walked back, they told her about the trip to Wudong. No wonder I thought it was strange that Zhao Go suddenly went to Wudong Mountain to worship the heavens. So that's how it is. When the two of them returned to the tent, Zhou Zhiruo very naturally helped Song Qingshu undress and hung his coat to the side. By the way, will you be in danger on this trip? Why don't I go with you? No need. First of all, you're needed here in Yangzhou City. Second, Wudong Mountain will be full of great grandmasters. You won't be able to help even if you go. It'll be dangerous, Song Qingshu replied while sighing. When there were no outsiders around, Zhou Zhiruo's behavior was becoming more and more like a housewife. Great grandmaster. Zhou Zhiruo poured a cup of tea for him and sat down at the table. She had a look of longing on her face. Just how many great grandmasters are there in this world? There shouldn't be many, Song Qingshu replied. For example, Huang Shang and the wine-fighting monk. They're all old monsters from the legends. They appear and disappear all day long. No one knows where they're hiding, let alone whether they're dead or alive. It's really difficult to count their numbers. Old monster? Zhou suddenly glanced at her husband strangely. She couldn't help but purse her lips and smile. Then are you an old monster? I'm different. Song Qingshu beamed with joy. I'm the main character. Bah, you're an old pervert, Zhou Zhuo spat, looking at his wife's beautiful face under the candlelight. It was even more beautiful than usual. Song Qingshu couldn't help but hold her soft hand. Zhuo, you are so beautiful. Yang Miaozhen's enthusiasm was as brilliant as a flame, but Zhou Zhuo's charm was like the first melting of ice and snow. Zhou Zhuo blushed. Her delicate body snuggled into his arms. Qingshu, the trip to Wudong is so dangerous. I'm really worried about you. Why don't you take the Yiqian sword with you? Song Qingshu shook his head. With my current martial arts, there is no difference whether I have a sword or not. It is better to stay with you to ensure your safety. Zhou Zhuo thought for a moment. She suddenly said, since my martial arts can't help you this time, you should ask Sister Dongfang to go with you. I will only be at ease if the two of you are together. Among the sisters around her, her martial arts could be considered top-notch. Ajio was almost on par with her. It was unlikely that he would be able to intervene in the Battle of Wudong. However, when she joined hands with Dongfang Muxue to assassinate Kangxi in the Forbidden City, her martial arts had left a deep impression on her. Now that she knew her former identity, she was even more convinced of her strength. You are indeed husband and wife. You are thinking the same thing. Song Qingshu smiled. He had told the yellow-shirt woman that he would stay with his wife for a few more days. Of course, it wasn't because he wanted to spend more time with his wife and ignore the important matters. It was just that he wanted to buy some time for Zhao Go and Jia Shidao to exhaust themselves so that he could reap the benefits. Secondly, he wanted to send her away so that he could find help. After all, he couldn't let the yellow-shirt woman know the identities of Dongfang Muxue and the others. Zhou Zhuo blinked and asked curiously, has Sister Dongfang really reached the Great Grandmaster realm? Song Qingshu looked to the north and looked like he was reminiscing. She didn't reach it before, but with me? Ahem, I think she has reached it now. Back then, Dongfang Muxue had been seriously injured. In the end, he had used the Tantra cultivation method to heal her. Not only had she recovered her peak strength, but she had also absorbed half of his inner strength. That's good. Zhou Zhuo breathed a sigh of relief. With two great grandmasters looking out for each other, even if Wudong Mountain was a dangerous place, they wouldn't have to worry about their safety. When do you plan to leave? Tomorrow morning. Time is a bit tight. Song Qingshu obviously couldn't stay by Zhou Zhuo's side for a few days like he had told the yellow-shirt woman. Zhou Zhuo agreed. Then let's rest early. Song Qingshu's scalp tightened. He had fought many battles with Yang Miaozhen. He wasn't a god, so how could he recover so quickly? Chapter 2004. Zhou suddenly blushed and said in a small voice, can we just talk tonight? I'm coming. Song Qingshu was worried. When he heard what she said, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. Huh? Zhou Zhuo looked at him suspiciously. His reaction wasn't right. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly and hurriedly said, it just so happens that we've been apart for so long. I have a lot of things I want to talk to you about. Zhou Zhuo pursed her lips and smiled. I don't have much to talk about in Yangzhou. Let's talk about the things that have happened around you. Also, tell me which sisters we've added to our family. You're my wife. There's no need to hide these things from you. Song Qingshu didn't hide anything. He slowly told her everything that had happened after he left Yangzhou with Zhao Min. Of course, he didn't tell her about Yang Miaozhen. After all, the other women were far away. Even if Zhou Zhiruan knew, she wouldn't say anything. However, Yang Miaozhen was so close. If something really happened, it wouldn't be easy to clean up. When she heard about the things that had happened around him, Zhou Zhuo was sometimes nervous and sometimes she sighed. After a long time, she exclaimed, you've experienced more than 10 lifetimes of other people. I really want to be by your side and experience the wonders of this world with you. Song Qingshu hugged her delicate body and said somewhat apologetically, "It's been hard on you to help me deal with Yangzhou's government affairs." "It's not hard at all. I'm actually enjoying it." Zhou Zhiruo giggled. "You don't need to be nervous. I won't go with you. If I'm by your side at all times, how can our young master Song fool around with other women?" Song Qingshu's face darkened. "You know that's not what I meant." All right. I'm not blaming you." Zhou Zhiruo sighed. "I've told you my stance before. Now that you want to conquer the world, if you can provoke some powerful women or women who are useful to you, not only will I not oppose it, but I will also welcome them. For example, the fourth lady of the Redcoat Army." "You mean Miss Yang?" Song Qingshu opened his mouth and was about to say something when Zhou Zhiruo rolled her eyes at him. "I'm not deaf. You guys fought so ambiguously at the banquet, and everyone was boiling over. Even if I was meditating, I could still hear it." Song Qingshu smiled sheepishly. "That's because the others were blindly stirring up trouble." Zhou Zhiruo sighed. "Although the fourth Nyangzi usually doesn't put on any makeup, she's still a woman after all. She still has some fragrance on her body. Although you reek of alcohol now, women are most sensitive to the smell of other women." Song Qingshu looked embarrassed. Zhou Zhiruo reached out and pressed her hand on his lips. "You don't need to feel guilty. Yang Yaozhen has a high prestige in the Redcoat Army. She's also a famous general. She is a rare talent. If you didn't capture her, I would have scolded you instead." Song Qingshu sighed. "Everyone says that a successful man must have a great woman behind him. With such a wife, what more can a man ask for?" Zhou Zhiruo pouted. "You obviously have a group of women behind you." Song Qingshu, fortunately, Zhou Zhiruo did not want to delve into this topic. She quickly changed the topic and asked him about Sichuan, Xixia, and other places. They talked for a long time before they finally fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, Song Qingshu bid farewell to Zhou Zhiruo and Yang Yaozhen. He traveled day and night to the north. This time, Huang Chong invited him on a whim, just in case, but he felt that 3 great grandmasters might not be enough. If not for the fact that he did not have enough time, he even planned to go to Mount Lu Ding and ask Patriarch Sunflower for help. Back then, he tied with Dongfang Muxue mainly because he was too old, which caused his realm to decline. These few years, he had absorbed the dragon chi at Mount Lu Ding. If there were no accidents, he must have recovered his great grandmaster realm. He was absolutely unfathomable. Does the illusory dragon chi really exist? And can it be refined? Along the way, Song Qingshu was puzzled by this question. But later, he remembered that his joyful genuine chi and Taishin Sutra were full of strange colors, so he reluctantly felt relieved. "I must find a chance to ask Patriarch Sunflower about this." Song Qingshu thought that these few years, after his and Dongfang Muxue's efforts, the Manchurian Qing's fate was probably nearing its end. Patriarch Sunflower most likely would not have many happy days absorbing dragon chi. Was it because of us that the Manchurian Qing's fate was nearing its end, or did Patriarch Sunflower help us by severing the Manchurian Qing's dragon vein? Song Qingshu couldn't figure it out. It was like the chicken or the egg. The camera panned to Zhaoguo's side. A group of people traveled along the river. When they passed by Zhou, someone sent a petition to pay their respects to Yufei. After all, Zhou was the Yu Army's main camp. This made Zhaoguo furious. Although Yufei's murder was nominally committed by Qin Hui, Machi Suo, and the others, these people had his approval. Hence, this matter had always been a thorn in his heart. Previously, he had vindicated Yufei because of the public's agitation. He had no choice but to push Machi Suo and the others out as scapegoats. But he was not willing. Now, someone actually publicly invited him to pay his respects to Yufei. However, he still had some sense left in him. Although he did not want to go himself, he still sent someone to pay his respects to prevent public opinion from boiling over again. After that, he did not even stop at Zhou. He directly led the group north along the Han River, all the way to Xiangyang. Looking at the looming Xiangyang city, Prince Yi, who was on the other ship, smiled. Finally, they had arrived. He had been under a lot of psychological pressure during this period of time. Soon, you would have an answer. Your Highness, it's not like there are no opportunities along the way. Why must we make our move on Mount Wudong? King Yi's confidant, Yu Qinshi, approached and asked in a low voice. King Yi answered, "First, he will only leave the main force once we reach Mount Wudong. Mount Wudong is a holy land of Taoism. It is impossible to let the whole army ascend the mountain together. Secondly, the other opportunities will disappear in a flash. The time and place are uncertain. The few people in Mansion of Spirits are all important people that even I cannot afford to offend. How can I order them to travel back and forth? So in conclusion, Mount Wudong is the best place to make our move. Faceless, will the generals and the others really come as promised? If some of them don't come, our plan will fall short of success." Yu Qinshi was very worried. With the status of those people, not even the emperor could order them around, not to mention the lord who was a king. Once there was a small mistake, they would be doomed eternally. They will definitely come, because they all have a reason to come. Looking at the distant horizon, King Yi's tone was full of confidence. The group soon arrived at Xiangyang. The governor of Jinghu, Lu Wendi, the pacification commissioner of Jinghu, Xiang Shibi, the magistrate of Xiangyang, Lu Wenhuan, the magistrate of Jiangling, Chao Shixiang, the magistrate of Zhou, Fan Wenhu, the commander-in-chief of Wuding Army in Huangzhou, Gao Ke, the deputy commander-in-chief of Jing and Yi, and a group of local officials had already come to welcome them. I heard that Guo Jing's family is also in Xiangyang City? After meeting all the officials, Zhao Go suddenly asked. General Guo's whereabouts are unknown. Now, only his daughter and 2 disciples are in the Guo residence, Lu Wendi answered. Zhao Go said lightly, "Bring her to see me." Note: in the first few chapters when describing the outline of the world, the Lu brothers were set to conquer Jinghu and Lianhuai separately. This was obviously unreasonable, so it was changed to the Lu brothers conquering Jinghu together. Chapter 2005. The officials looked at each other. They could not understand why the emperor would suddenly make such a request. It would be fine if he wanted to see Guo Jing, but Guo Fu was just a commoner and a young girl who did not know the ways of the world. How could she move the emperor? Could it be that the emperor has heard of her beauty and wants to see her? Although this young Miss Guo is a little arrogant, her beauty is undeniable. She has perfectly inherited her mother's stunning beauty. Although young Miss Guo is beautiful, I don't know why, but I always feel that she is not as attractive as Madame. Isn't that obvious? The crowd made wild guesses. Only a few people knew that Zhao Go was not lusting after Guo Fu's beauty. After all, his body was already incapacitated. There was still the beautiful imperial concubine Wu in the palace, alone on an empty bed. How could he have such thoughts about Guo Fu? Forget it. Let's go directly to the Guo Manor. Zhao Go thought for a moment, then suddenly said, "Also summon the Jianghu people who have helped defend Xiangyang these years. I will reward them well. We cannot disappoint the hearts of the world." The others had wanted to advise him, but hearing him say this, they did not dare to submit a memorial. Otherwise, they would be cursed by the world. The commander of the front court department, Wang Zidong, led a large group of guards and soldiers to camp outside Xiangyang City. After all, it was not convenient for an army to enter the city. Zhao Go's safety was taken care of by the guards and the front court department. Of course, there were also the guards of Xiangyang City. Lu Wendi had already done a lot of security work beforehand. The security of the entire Xiangyang City had reached a level where no one would pick up items on the road, and no doors would be closed at night. The group entered the city. On the way, Zhao Go summoned all the officials in the capital to ask about the situation in the city. He suddenly noticed a few young people and could not help but ask about them. Lu Wendi respectfully replied, "Your Majesty, this is my son, Shi Dao, the current commander-in-chief of Guai Province. This is my nephew, Shi Sheng, the current commander-in-chief of Xiao Province. These 2 are my eldest son-in-law, Fan Wenhu, the current commander-in-chief of Wuding Province in Huang Province. This is my second son-in-law, Qiu Tongfu, the current commander-in-chief of Ying province. If Song Qingshu was present, he would definitely look at Fan Wenhu a few more times. This man was a top talent in history. During the last years of the Southern Song dynasty, Fan Wenhu led the last of the Southern Song dynasty's navy and was defeated by the Mongols. But after surrendering to the Mongols, his career actually prospered, and he quickly rose to a high position. The Mongols actually let him lead the Eastern Campaign against Japan. The result was, without a doubt, the complete annihilation of the Mongols' navy of hundreds of thousands. Of course, Zhao Guo did not know any of this. Looking at how smart and strong they were, he could not help but laugh. As expected of the sons of generals. All these years, it was all because of your concerted efforts that the borders of the Song dynasty were safe. Lu Wendi and the others hurriedly replied, "To serve the country, we will not hesitate to die 10,000 times. We dare not take credit." As Zhao Guo ordered the eunuchs to reward them, he laughed coldly to himself. The Lu brothers had indeed made the Jing Lake region a solid block. More than half of the entire Jing Lake military were their people. And that Xiu Tongfu, if he remembered correctly, his father was Ma Qiuming, the secretary of the Bureau of Military Affairs and supervisor of the Jianghuai army. These people colluded with each other and joined forces. Where do they put me, the emperor? The group quickly arrived at the Guo residence. The Guo family had long been informed. Guo Fu, Big Wu, and Little Wu were waiting at the door to welcome the emperor. Everyone could only see the girl in red in front of them. Her eyebrows were curved, her small nose slightly tilted up. Her face was like white jade, and her complexion was like the morning sun. It was Guo Fu. Her attire was not very luxurious. There was only a string of pearls hanging around her neck, which gave off a faint glow. It made her look even more like a jade sculpture. Perhaps it was because she suddenly found out that the emperor was coming. She was nervous. Sweat appeared on her forehead. Her cheeks were illuminated by the red dress, making her look even more beautiful. Everyone sighed in their hearts. Miss was really beautiful. They heard that Guo Jing was tall and strong, but they did not know that Madame Guo had such a beautiful daughter. How beautiful must she be to be able to give birth to such a beautiful daughter with him? Lu Shidao and the other young people stared at the girl in red in front of them. Guo Fu's beauty had a strong impact on people of their age. They recalled that Madame Guo seemed to have the intention of marrying into the Lu family. However, their father was not very interested at that time. After all, he was prepared to find a wife from a noble family of linen. This way, a strong alliance would be more beneficial to the Lu family's power. Although Guo Fu was beautiful, and Guo Jing and Huang Rong were popular, they came from a poor family. Their help to the Lu family was limited. Although I can't be the main wife, I can still be a concubine. Lu Shidao swallowed his saliva. At the same time, there was a haze between his brows. Madame Guo seemed to be less interested in her marriage these 2 years. She was not as eager to matchmake the two of them. He did not know why. Lu Shixing also stared closely at Guo Fu. Looking at this beautiful girl who almost became his sister-in-law, he could not help but feel a strange sense of excitement. If he could take her in as a concubine, but then his uncle and his family would not look good. They were the ones who did not want her, but they did not allow others to have her. What kind of logic was this? Among everyone present, only Zhao Guo's mind was the purest. After losing his virginity, he no longer had those messy thoughts. Looking at this beautiful girl, he thought in his heart, is this the descendant of King Chao's bloodline? Back then, he found out that Guo Jing was the descendant of Chai Rong's 5th son, Chai Shirong, who had disappeared after Taizu Huangpao was added. Therefore, he did not want him to stay in the capital to lead the imperial army. Instead, he was sent to the north on an expedition. No one knew if he was dead or alive. To a certain extent, this solved a big problem for him. Fortunately, Guo Jing did not have a son, so the bloodline of King Chao was broken. Thinking of this, Zhao Guo's gloomy mood for the past few days finally saw a ray of sunshine. His face also became amiable. "Miss Guo, please rise." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Guo Fu stood up and quietly looked at this emperor. She thought to herself, he is not as muddle-headed as the people say. After casually praising the Guo family for their contributions, Zhao Go noticed a few people in ragged clothes at the back. He could not help but frown. Who are they? This is the current chief of the beggar sect, Lu Youjiao, and a few of the beggar sect's 8 pouch elders. These years, it was thanks to their help that Xiangyang was not lost. Lu Wendy introduced. These years, Huang Rong had gradually delegated power. Now, she had completely handed over the beggar sect to Lu Youjiao. So they're the righteous people of the beggar sect. Zhao Go nodded. He had heard of the Guo family's Huang Rong. Although he did not think that these Jianghu people would be of much use on the battlefield, they still had to have the proper attitude to avoid disappointing the hearts of the people. Lu Youjiao and the others hurriedly bowed. Long live the emperor! Zhao Go walked over to express his condolences. Who knew that at this moment, an 8 pouch elder would suddenly jump towards him? There's an assassin, someone cried out. Lu Youjiao and the others were even more frightened. If anything happened to the emperor and the assassin came from the beggar sect, then the beggar sect would not be able to clear their name even if they jumped into the Yellow River. The other elders obviously had the same thought. They all attacked at the same time, wanting to restrain this traitor. Lu Youjiao's martial arts were not weak. In addition, in recent years, with the help of Huang Rong and Guijing, he had been taught the dog-beating stick technique and the 18 dragons subduing palms. His skills had improved greatly. The others who were able to become 8 pouch elders of the beggar sect were all experts in the Jianghu. They worked together to seal the assassin's vital acupuncture points. If the assassin did not defend himself, he would be severely injured by them. Naturally, he would not have any energy left to attack the emperor. If he defended himself, the people around the emperor would have enough time to react. Unfortunately, the assassin's body swayed strangely. He was like a fish in the water. His body very cleverly dodged the attacks of the 8 pouch elders. Then, with a twist of his legs, he broke through Lu Youjiao's defense. His kick landed directly on his chest. Lu Youjiao spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body fell backwards. The assassin used the force of the recoil to shoot toward Zhao Go like an arrow released from a bow. In an instant, he was in front of Zhao Go. The dagger in his hand was only a few inches away from Zhao Go. A hint of a smile appeared at the corner of the assassin's mouth. He was very confident in his sword. He had carried out dozens of missions, and not once had he failed. And today's sword had been displayed to an extraordinary standard. The dozens of missions in the past could not compare to the magnificence of this stab. However, he suddenly realized that the cold gleam of the dagger in front of him seemed to have suddenly turned into a blinding white light. The alarm in his heart rose. Unfortunately, it was already too late. He only felt a chill on the top of his head. Then, his entire body sank into endless darkness. A person beside Zhao Go calmly sheathed his dagger. At the same time, he ordered his subordinates to search for any remnants of the assassin. LV Wendy and the others also hurriedly ordered the soldiers to seal off the scene and search for the assassin. At the same time, they looked at the emperor's bodyguard with some fear. As an important official of the court, he naturally recognized the identity of that person. His name was Li Yanshi. He was Zhao Go's confidant. After Zhao Go ascended to the throne, he was appointed to lead the imperial weapons. LV when he secretly wiped away his cold sweat. Everyone said that those who led imperial weapons were experts among experts. Now that he had seen it, it was indeed extraordinary. In all of Xiangyang City, perhaps only Guijing and Huang Rong could compare to them. No, Huang Rong might not be able to defeat him. Those who led imperial weapons had always been experts among experts. The last batch of imperial weapons had been people like Han Shizhong, Lu Qi, and Yu Yun. The ones who led imperial weapons now, whether it was Ding Dian with the shadowless godly fist, or Wu Shi with the peerless sword skills, although he was later involved in the scandal of treason, all of them were famous figures in the martial world. Now, even Li Yanshi, who had never been famous, had such powerful dagger skills. Who knew who the rest of the imperial weapons were? He subconsciously looked at Jia Sherdao, who was not far away, with worry. With such an expert by Zhao Gou's side, would this operation really be okay? Unfortunately, Jia Sherdao's face was expressionless. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking at the moment. Liu Yojiao and the others ignored their injuries and hurriedly struggled over to apologize. Please forgive us, Your Majesty. We don't know why this person suddenly tried to assassinate us. A group of elders of the beggar sect kowtowed desperately to apologize, but they also knew that this excuse was useless. This time, the beggar sect was probably in trouble. Li Yanshi, who was squatting on the ground to search for the assassin's imperial weapons, suddenly felt a waist tag. He presented it to Zhao Gou and said, Your Majesty, this is a spy from the Jin Kingdom's laundry yard. Laundry yard? Zhao Gou's eyelids twitched. This place represented endless humiliation for the entire Song dynasty. He did not expect that someone would dare to come and assassinate him. Report. The Guanghua army is in an emergency. Report. The Suizhou army is in an emergency. Report. The Xinyang army is in an emergency. Suddenly, soldiers came one after another to report that the Jin Kingdom's troops had split up and were heading straight for Xiangyang. Zhao Gou's expression changed. Didn't they just make peace with the Jin Kingdom? Why did they suddenly start a war? Did they know that he was coming to Xiangyang this time and wanted to kill him? The officials were all talking about it. Jia Sherdao suddenly stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, I am willing to lead an army to the Guanghua army and defend the country from the enemy. King Yi also stepped forward and said, I am willing to lead an army to the Suizhou myself. I will not let the Jin Kingdom cross the Suizhou corridor. Permission granted. Seeing the two's reactions, Zhao Gou felt relieved. It seemed that this urgent military situation was most likely made up by Jia Sherdao. They were far away from him, so if anything happened to him, the world could not blame them. Let's see who has the last laugh. Looking at the two's loyal and courageous faces, Zhao Gou laughed coldly in his heart. Please remember this book's domain name. Com. Wonderful Book House mobile version website. Com. Chapter 2006. Jia Sherdao, King Yi, and the others quickly left after receiving the decree. Zhao Gou had a lot on his mind, so he didn't want to stay at the Guo mansion any longer. Seeing Liu Yojiao and the others still kneeling on the ground and kowtowing, he was annoyed. He waved his hand impatiently and said, All right. I know you had nothing to do with this. Even though you were responsible for your negligence, you did a good job in protecting the emperor. Liu Yojiao and the others let out a long sigh of relief. They quickly kowtowed and thanked him. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. They were a group of Jianghu people who were usually far away from the emperor. They were happy to call the emperor a dog. But when the emperor really stood in front of them, they were shocked to find that the pressure was so great that it was difficult for them to even speak normally. After Zhao Gou and the others left the Guo mansion, they stayed in the palace that LV, Wendy, and the others had prepared in the city. They then passed down the decree that they would fast and bathe in the palace for 3 days before going to Wutang Mountain to show their sincerity. During this time, the Imperial Guards checked Wutang Mountain, but they didn't find anything wrong. After listening to the guards' report about Wutang Mountain, Huang Chong suddenly walked out of the shadows and asked, Is Zhang Sanfeng here? The two of them had been friends for a long time. Even if everyone in the world rebelled, he didn't believe that Jia Sherdao and the others could persuade Zhang Sanfeng to rebel with them. The guard shook his head and said, I heard from the Wu-Tang clan that Zhang Sanfeng is in seclusion. Seclusion? Huang Chong frowned. Who received you from the Wu-Tang clan? Yu Lianzhou or Song Yuanxiao? The guard answered, Neither. It was Yin Lighting, one of the 6 heroes. Yin Lighting? Hearing this answer, Huang Chong was silent. Li Yanshi couldn't help but say, Your Majesty, I think something big must have happened to Wutang Mountain. For safety's sake, we should cancel the plan to go up. Zhao Gou snorted coolly. Why? Li Yanshi knew that Zhao Gou was determined to succeed this time and would not be swayed by just a few words from him. However, as an old member of the Wu-Tang sect, his loyalty to Zhao Go made him unwilling to see his master take the slightest risk. Among the 7 heroes of Wu-Tang, Song Yuan Xiao is mature and steady, while Yu Lianzhou is calm and collected. With these two in charge of the entire Wu-Tang sect, no matter who it is, they will not cooperate with the rebels. However, it just so happens that this Yin Liuxia has a weak personality. From what happened with Amei and Ji Xiaofu in the past, it can be seen that he is indecisive. Zhao Go frowned and said, "You are saying that it is very likely that someone else used the safety of his master and senior brothers to force Yin Lighting to cooperate?" Li Yinshe replied, "Most likely so." Seeing that Zhao Go was silent, Li Yinshe couldn't help but continue. "Your Majesty, as the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand under a collapsing wall. Furthermore, you have a body of gold. Why do you have to take such a risk this time? In my opinion, there is no need to fight to the death with Jia Shidao. Furthermore, the situation is not at its worst. Take the officials in Jinghu, for example. North Jinghu Pacification Commissioner Xiang Shibi, Azhou Zhizhou Chao Shixiang, and Jingyi Deputy Commander Gao have always been at odds with Jia Shidao. Even if Jia Shidao has any disloyal intentions, they will not sit idly by. He was Zhao Go's most trusted confidant, and one of the few people who knew the entire plan. Zhao Go was silent. If there was still time, he would not make such a risky move. Unfortunately, due to some reason, his body had been deteriorating over the past 2 years. He probably did not have many days left to live. Although he had a mixed reputation over the years, rebuilding the Song Empire in a time of crisis was the proudest thing in his life. However, he had accidentally created the monster Jia's group. Once he died, with the crown prince's age and prestige, he would not be able to deal with him. Zhao Go did not want the Song Empire to follow in the footsteps of Chao Wei and Beizhou, which was why he had made up his mind to get rid of Jia Shidao while he still had the ability. That way, he would be able to face his ancestors in the afterlife. However, he could not tell anyone else about this. The emperor's health condition was the most confidential information in the empire. Only people like Huang Chong, who had nothing to do with the world, knew about his health condition. Other than that, confidants like Li Yinshe were not allowed to know. There is no need to say anything more. I have made up my mind. Zhao Go waved his hand and stopped Li Yinshe from continuing. He turned around and asked Huang Chong, "Has Song Qingshu arrived yet?" Huang Chong shook his head and said, "No, but my disciple is keeping an eye on him. He should be able to get back in time. That is why I am fasting and bathing for 3 days. If he does not arrive in 3 days, then there is no need to wait," Zhao Go said calmly. Huang Chong hesitated and said, "Wouldn't it be too risky to go up the mountain without waiting for him?" Zhao Go shook his head and said, "Song Qingshu does not look like the kind of person who is willing to be under someone else's command. His participation in this operation has added a few more variables. I did not consider him in the first place, but you insisted on bringing him in. You even asked me to use Imperial Concubine Wu as a bargaining chip. A useless Imperial Concubine that has fallen out of favor can be used to appease Concubine Jia and get the help of a great Grandmaster. It is a good deal, no matter how you look at it," Huang Chong replied calmly. Huang Chong faintly replied, "Someone of Imperial Consort Wu's status naturally could not be openly given to Song Qingshu, but with her beauty and status, it was impossible for her to disappear into thin air in the palace. Thus, the emperor sent people to create the illusion that she had committed suicide in the cold palace, so that Consort Jia, who had always regarded her as a thorn in her side, would feel at ease." Zhao Go laughed coldly and said, "Unfortunately, looking at the current situation, it is very likely that I have lost Imperial Concubine Wu for nothing. When we return to the capital, we will settle the score with Song Qingshu. His Golden Snake camp occupies Shandong and northern Jiangsu, and he has 100,000 elite soldiers under him. It goes without saying what his intentions are. Previously, he had not been free. This time, we could take advantage of this opportunity to take back these 2 places. Previously, these 2 places were occupied by the Jins and the Qing, so he did not have much confidence. However, In the face of a local separatist force that was made up of Han people, he did not feel the slightest bit of psychological pressure. Huang Chong frowned. It was obvious that he wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. 3 days passed quickly. Zhao Guo and his entourage set off for Wutang Mountain as scheduled. Prince Yi, who was supposed to be guarding the Suizhou corridor, appeared in Xiangyang City. Seeing the emperor's entourage gradually disappear into the distance, a hint of eagerness flashed through his eyes. With great difficulty, he suppressed it and asked, "Is the Wu-Tang side ready?" His confidant, Yu Qianxi, answered, "Everything is ready." According to the news that Widow Hua sent back, they used the safety of the entire Wu-Tang clan and Yang Buhui as a threat. Enlighting finally agreed to cooperate. When the time comes, the emperor will not see any flaws. Wu-Tang's In Liuxia, what a great reputation, but it is only SOSO. A hint of sarcasm flashed through the corner of Prince Yi's mouth. Yu Tianxi laughed and said, Enlighting did not agree at first, but his wife happened to be pregnant, so he had no choice but to agree. With such a young and beautiful wife, if it were me, I would also be reluctant. Prince Yi also couldn't help but laugh. I heard that his beautiful fiancée was snatched away by Yang Shao of the Ming dynasty. At first, everyone was laughing at him, but in the end, the daughter of his former lover actually fell in love with him, putting on a good show of an old cow seducing young grass, making Yang Shao the laughingstock of the world. I don't know who got the better end of the deal. Yu Tianxi echoed, I heard that the mother and daughter look very similar, and I have seen them personally. They are indeed outstanding beauties. After this matter is over, it is impossible to leave the Wu-Tang clan alive. It would be a pity to kill them. If your highness is interested, you can summon her to play after the matter is over. Bastard, what kind of woman have I not seen? Why must I do such an unbearable thing? Prince Yi's face turned serious, and he reprimanded a few times, but his heart was in a dilemma. There were indeed many beauties in the prince's mansion, but I have never played with a pregnant woman before. Should I give it a try? But if this gets out, it will not be good for my reputation. Yu Qianxi naturally didn't know that he had already tempted Prince Yi, so he hurriedly changed the topic. By the way, I haven't been able to contact that wandering soul. Still can't contact him. Prince Yi frowned, and his heart was covered with a layer of haze. Should we send someone to look for him? Yu Qianxi saw that the other was not in a good mood and said cautiously, Forget it. Prince Yi waved his hand. Anyway, it doesn't matter if he is there or not. Even if he is there, he can't intervene. Yes. Hearing him say this, Yu Qianxi also felt the same. Although there were so many arrangements, it was still up to the faceless man and the general to decide the outcome. Zhao Guo and his party continued to travel north along the Han River for more than 100 miles by boat, then abandoned the boat and walked by land. They arrived at the small town at the foot of Wutang Mountain the next evening. Soon, the emperor's decree was issued. The next morning, they would go up the mountain to worship heaven. As for Wang Ziding, he had already led the people of the Front Palace Department to set up defenses on the periphery of Wutang Mountain in advance, lest the enemy send an army to attack and capture the emperor. Is there still no news from Song Qingshu? In the bedroom, Zhao Guo confirmed again. He hasn't returned. Huang Chang's voice floated from the shadows. Ying Luo hasn't returned either? Zhao Guo was somewhat dissatisfied. He thought that it was one thing for Song Qingshu to harbor evil intentions. But you are my imperial sister. How could you not return? He was most likely delayed by something. Not long ago, we received intelligence that the Redcoat army split up. Xia Quan led the army to attack Yangzhou, and Huaidong commanding officer Lu Gu also cooperated and appeared near Yangzhou. Ding Dian couldn't help but answer. As the commander of the imperial armament, he was naturally by the emperor's side this time. Back then, he and Ling Xuanhua were able to get married because of Song Qingshu, so he didn't want Song Qingshu to become enemies with the emperor, so he spoke up for him. Lu Gu actually dared to mobilize troops on his own? How dare he? Zhao Guo was furious when he heard that, and he smashed the teacup in his hand to pieces. He paced around the room anxiously. Lu Gu is Jia Shidao's man, so he must have been instructed by him to attack Yang Zhou on purpose, forcing Song Qingshu to have no choice but to save him. Naturally, he won't be able to come to Wu-Tang Mountain. Jia Shidao actually dared to do such a thing for his own selfishness. It was a taboo for the emperor to mobilize troops on his own. Zhao Go ascended to the throne in the chaos of war, and he had experienced the Miaolu Rebellion, where he almost lost his head, as well as the Huaishi Rebellion, where tens of thousands of troops surrendered to the Jin Kingdom. This made him even more sensitive to such matters. If this bastard isn't eliminated, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Zhao Go felt that his decision this time was increasingly wise. Tomorrow, on Wu-Tang Mountain, everything would be settled, whether or not Song Qingshu was there. He had absolute confidence in this operation. Chapter 2007. On the morning of the second day, the emperor moved to Mount Wudong. Wang Zedong led his personal guards to set up defenses at the foot of the mountain to ensure that no enemy troops would suddenly appear nearby. Then, Zhu Banji of the Front Hall Division set up defenses along the winding paths of Mount Wudong. The mysterious imperial armament stayed close to Zhao Go to ensure the emperor's safety. Since it was a sacrifice, it was not convenient for Zhao Go to sit in a sedan. To show his sincerity, he walked all the way up the mountain. The path up Mount Wudong was not as steep as Mount Hua. In addition, with Zhang Sanfeng's reputation, the emperors of all the countries spent a lot of money to help him build Mount Wudong. Even the path up the mountain was paved with stone steps. It was not difficult to walk. Even so, Zhao Go still walked until he was panting. Along the way, he did not know how many times he had to stop and rest. The officials that accompanied him did not dare to say a word. Many people pretended to be too tired to move for his sake. The emperor's health is getting worse. Wasn't he in good spirits a few years ago? It's probably because he escaped from the Jin Kingdom's search. Hasn't he never had an heir? I don't know how long the emperor can hold on. Luckily, a few years ago, he chose 2 sons to adopt. Now that the crown prince has been decided, if anything happens, the country can be saved. It's a pity Prince C. He is talented and capable. Most importantly, he is courteous and much steadier than the crown prince. It is a pity. Back then, the palace chose 2 sons. Prince E had a great chance to inherit the throne. I don't know why the palace chose the crown prince. Didn't the emperor bring Prince E with him this time? In my opinion, the emperor dotes on Prince E. When the time comes, there may be hope for the throne. These words have been exchanged countless times between the officials in private. Now, everyone could understand each other with just a look. There was no need to say it. Halfway up the mountain, Zhao Go looked back at the scenery between the clouds. He felt his field of vision widen. He could not help but sigh. It really is like a celestial palace. The hard work of climbing was swept away in an instant. But when he looked up and saw the words Prince Slope on the board not far away, the smile on his face froze and became frighteningly gloomy. The Crown Prince Slope was built by the previous emperor. The bronze statue of the Crown Prince was enshrined in the hall. It was the only place of learning and praying for blessings in Mount Wudong. Scholars from all over the world came to observe the Crown Prince's expression while he was reading, to comprehend the Crown Prince's concentration in his studies, so that they could gain new insights and understanding of their studies, so that they could succeed in their studies. Zhao Go also knew these reasons. But when he thought about how he wasn't the Crown Prince in the past, and how the Crown Prince wasn't his biological son, it was hard for him to be happy. When the officials heard him praising this place as a paradise on earth, many of them wanted to flatter him. But when they noticed his unfriendly expression, they all fell silent. Let's go. Zhao Go had originally planned to rest here, but now he wasn't in the mood, continuing to walk upwards. When the officials saw the words Crown Prince's Slope, they could roughly guess what was going on. They thought that the emperor's mental state was really strong. Previously, he was so tired from climbing the mountain, but now he climbed the mountain as if nothing had happened. After that, the atmosphere of the entire group became much more gloomy, and before they knew it, they had already reached the mountain. Lighting led the disciples of the Wudong sect to welcome the emperor at the entrance of the Purple Cloud Palace. Only Mount Wudong had this honor. If it were any other sect, they would at least welcome the emperor at the foot of the mountain, even if they didn't welcome him at Xiangyang. It was just that cultivators were particular about peace and quiet. Plus, they had to maintain the mysterious image of immortals, so it was normal for emperors to seek immortality. If you were too ardent and passionate, you wouldn't have the slightest bit of sage-like demeanor. How could the emperor believe you? Of course, the Wudong sect didn't need to learn from the senior Taoists, but now that there was a publicly recognized earth immortal on the mountain, the entire Wudong sect had a corresponding bearing, so they naturally didn't care about the fawning attitude of other sections. Why are you the only one here? Where's Zhenren Zhang, Master Song, and Second Hero Yu? Even though he had roughly guessed what was going on, Zhao Go still asked meaningfully. As expected, Lighting looked conflicted. After a long time, he answered, Master is in seclusion. Eldest brother and second brother are studying with Master, so the eunuch on the side couldn't help but scold. How dare you people of Mount Wudong? The imperial court has already sent people to inform you, but you all avoid meeting them. Do you have any respect for the emperor? Lighting looked troubled. I dare not. It's just that when the palace sent the invitation, Master and the others were already in seclusion. This is an important matter, so they can't come out before it's done. Is that so? Zhao Go waved his hand to stop the eunuch from scolding him. Then where is Zhenren Zhang in seclusion? What is he studying that is so important? Lighting answered, back at the emperor's house. Master is in seclusion at the back of the mountain, studying with senior brother to perfect the true martial 7 sections formation. True martial 7 sections formation? Zhao Go frowned and glanced at the guards. Of the people leading the imperial equipment, Ding Jian had been in Jianghu for the longest time. He naturally knew more about Jianghu than anyone else. He stepped forward and answered, back at the emperor's house. The true martial 7 sections formation was created by Zhenren Zhang when he saw the Turtle Mountain and the Snake Mountain in front of the Zhenwu statue. However, the martial arts evolved from a majestic Turtle Mountain and the Snake Mountain are not something that one person can use at the same time. So he taught each of his 7 disciples a set of martial arts, each with its own subtleties. If 2 people work together, they can attack and defend well, and their power is greatly increased. If 3 people work together, the power is twice as strong as 2 people work together, so on and so forth. When the 7 heroes of Wudong work together, it's equivalent to 64 top-notch masters attacking at the same time. Oh, Zhao Go's expression changed. If there's such a magical formation, why is he still studying it in seclusion? Lighting answered, you may not know this, but this formation requires 7 people to work together. It's a pity that 5th brother committed suicide that year, and 3rd brother's leg bone was injured by the Herculean Vajra finger. He was finally healed, and then 7th brother got into trouble. Zhao Go asked curiously, didn't you just say that 2 people work together can double the power, and 3 people work together can double the power again? There are at least 4 or 5 of you now. Can't you still use it? Lighting replied, we did use it once before. Because of a misunderstanding, eldest brother, second brother, and 4th brother fought with Wuji, with Zhang Jiaozhu of the Ming dynasty. In the end, we were 4 against 1, and we lost. Although our opponent's strange moves were a part of it, we still lost so badly when we worked together, which made Master realize that there are flaws in the true martial 7-section formation. So he has been thinking about how to perfect it all these years. It was not until recently that he got the inspiration, so he summoned eldest brother and second brother, who were the most skilled in martial arts, to perfect it together. Zhao Go frowned. Jia Shidao's words sounded reasonable, as if he was telling the truth. But he knew Jia Shidao well. Since he chose to make a move on the Wu-Tang Mountain, how could he leave Zhang Sanfeng and the Wu-Tang heroes alone? Unless Zhang Sanfeng and the Wudong clan joined Jia Shidao. But he extinguished the idea as soon as it came up. If Zhang Sanfeng could be bought over, he wouldn't have become a land god respected by all countries. Let's go visit immortal Zhang after I finish worshipping the heavens. As if feeling the cold wind at the top of the mountain, Zhao Go couldn't stop coughing. He then signaled the officials from the Ministry of Rites and the disciples of Wudong to go together to prepare for the worshipping the heavens. In fact, there wasn't much to prepare. The officials that needed to prepare had already come and prepared. Soon, it was Zhao Go's turn to go up on stage to worship the heavens with the article that the Grand Secretary had carefully prepared. Throughout the whole process, some of the ordinary officials and low-level disciples of Wudong all looked excited. Only a few people who knew the truth felt as if a huge rock was pressing down on their hearts, and they didn't dare to relax for even a moment. Enlighting looked at the road down the mountain several times, and he looked worried. If Qing Shu couldn't come back in time, Wudong would probably go through an unprecedented disaster. The entire process lasted for several hours. The entire place was immersed in a solemn atmosphere. Although many people were secretly criticizing Zhao Go's actions in the past few years, the people of this era all respected ghosts and gods, so no one dared to show any abnormalities. After the worshipping was finished, Zhao Go said to the people around him, as expected, they probably won't make a move during the worshipping. Li Yinsher nodded and replied in a low voice, there are too many eyes during the worshipping. It really isn't a good time. If the assassins were from the Jin Kingdom, they wouldn't care about this. But this time, their ultimate goal was the throne. If they killed the emperor in front of everyone, no one would be able to bear the reputation. Since they don't have a chance, then I will create one for them. Zhao Go snorted coldly. Li Yinsher hurriedly advised, think carefully, we haven't reached the point where we have to fight to the death. If we go down the mountain now, with the army escorting us, we can still make it in time. Zhao Go said in a low voice, we have planned for so long. How can we give up when the time comes? Ignoring Li Yinsher's advice, he sent someone to invite Enlighting over. It isn't easy for me to leave the palace, and Wudong is thousands of miles away from Lin. I don't know if I will have the chance to see Jinren Zhang again in this lifetime. So can I trouble Hero Een to invite Jinren Zhang here? Hearing his sincere words and his trembling appearance, he didn't look like the ruler of a country, but more like an ordinary old man. Enlighting couldn't bear it. You are so sincere. If it was in the past, my teacher would definitely come, but now he can't leave. In the future, when he comes out of seclusion, my teacher will definitely go and visit you. Why are you in such a hurry? After a pause, he couldn't help but add in a low voice, you are so precious. It's better for you to return to the palace and take charge of the capital. Zhao Go was a little surprised to hear that he had a double meaning and was secretly reminding him. But now that things had come to this, how could he retreat just like that? Since Jinren Zhang is in seclusion and has no time to spare, then I will personally visit Jinren in the bamboo grove at the back of the mountain. Even if Jinren Zhang can't come out, it would be good to teach him a lesson through the door. Having said that, he had the accompanying officials stay here to deal with the remaining formalities for the worship to heaven, while he himself led the Imperial Guards and found a Wudong disciple to lead the way, heading to the back of the mountain. Enlighting gritted his teeth and wanted to persuade him again, but suddenly someone stood in front of him. Hero Een, don't worry. You are the son of heaven and will definitely be protected by all the gods and Buddhas. Of course, the evil will not be able to hurt him. Lifting his head, he saw a glowing monk smiling at him. Enlighting was shocked. All these years, with the guidance of his master and senior brothers, he had been practicing martial arts wholeheartedly, and his martial arts had improved greatly. Looking at the martial arts world, he was already a first-rate master. He could vaguely judge the strength of a person's strength through their qi movement. Before this, he had already felt the strength of the few people beside the emperor who were carrying the imperial equipment. Among the heroes of Wudong, perhaps only eldest brother and second brother would be able to compete with them. But this monk was clearly standing here, but he couldn't feel his presence. It wasn't that he had never felt this way before. It was every time he faced his master. Could it be that this person was comparable to his master? But since when did Shaolin Temple have such a master? Please remember the domain name of this book. Com. Wonderful Book House mobile version website. Com. Chapter 2008. It was no wonder Lighting was shocked. Wudong and Shaolin had never been on good terms. Ever since Shaolin called his master a traitor, they would come looking for trouble every few days. Fifth brother being forced to commit suicide pushed the conflict to its peak. As an imaginary enemy, Wudong's sect had also done detailed research on Shaolin's sect. Though Shaolin had many masters, the 7 heroes of Wudong were not weak either. Coupled with Zhang Sanfeng, who was an earth immortal, Shaolin had always been afraid of him. Even the 13 ultimate divine, monk Xiancheng, was far weaker than Zhang Sanfeng. 2 years ago, a mysterious, sweeping monk appeared out of nowhere. Only then was he able to fight against Wudong. But Lighting had seen that sweeping monk before. He was obviously different from this red-faced monk. Suddenly knowing that Shaolin had 2 people of this level, Lighting was instantly worried. As his thoughts ran wild, a group of people had already arrived at the bamboo garden behind the mountain. But they were quickly stopped by the children at the door. Grandmaster is in seclusion. He will not see guests. A eunuch stepped forward and yelled, "Open your eyes and look carefully. This is an official of the Song dynasty. He is the emperor. Are you just a normal guest?" Seeing such a large group of people walking over aggressively, the 2 children were a little afraid. But because of their duty, they did not dare to let them in. Sixth uncle. Seeing Lighting, the 2 children acted as if they had seen their savior and hurriedly called out. Lighting was also a little hesitant. In the end, he sighed, "Let them in. I will ask master." The 2 children felt as if they had been pardoned. They quickly moved to the side. Zhao Go led the group into the garden. Because the garden was too small, it could not accommodate so many people. So the other guards only surrounded the garden. Only the guards with imperial weapons and a few servants were with them. Of course, the drunkard monk was with them. As for Huang Chong, no one knew where he was hiding. The courtyard was very simple. There were a few bamboos, a small pond, and a few huts. Everyone was curious at first. Taoist Zhang, who was famous all over the world, actually lived in such a simple place. But on second thought, it was normal. If he lived in a magnificent place, it would be disappointing. What's the commotion outside? While everyone was looking around, a faint voice came from the middle house. Lighting hesitated for a moment, but he still stepped forward and replied, "Reporting to Shifu, the emperor came to Mount Wudong to offer sacrifices to the heaven. He wanted to see you." Zhao Go, who was not far away, frowned slightly. Hearing him address him like this, could it really be Zhang Sanfeng inside? If Zhang Sanfeng was here, coupled with the strength of the guards by his side, how would those ambitious people dare to make a move? "I'm at a critical juncture in my seclusion, so it's really inconvenient for me to greet you. I hope you can forgive me." The voice sounded again. Is the person inside really Zhang Sanfeng? Zhao Go lowered his voice and asked the person beside him. The imperial guards all looked at each other in dismay. They had never seen Zhang Sanfeng before, so naturally, they couldn't make a judgment. It was the wine fighter who opened his mouth and said, "His voice is quite old, but it's still impossible to judge just from his voice. As for his aura, rumor has it that Zhang Sanfeng has the body of an earth immortal and has already reached the realm of returning to the natural state. It's normal that I can't feel it." Zhao Go nodded, stepped forward and said to the house, "These years, the imperial court has allocated a lot of funds to Mount Wudong. Every generation of emperors has greatly renovated the Purple Cloud Palace. In this regard, I don't fall behind the previous emperors. And this time, I personally came to Mount Wudong from thousands of miles away, but you aren't even willing to meet me. Isn't that a little unreasonable? Could it be that you are dissatisfied with the imperial court or me?" Hearing his tone gradually harden, Lighting's expression changed slightly, and he looked worriedly at the small house. The house fell into silence, and after a long time, the voice sounded again. "This time it's my fault. It's just that I'm at a critical juncture in my seclusion, and I can't come out, so I can only trouble you to come in and meet me. I'm at a critical juncture in my cultivation, and I don't want to be disturbed by others. I hope you can help me." Hearing that he wanted Zhao Go to go in alone, everyone's expression changed. Li Yanshi hurriedly stopped Zhao Go. "Sir, Be careful. It's a trap. Don't take any risks. If this was a normal situation, Zhang Sanfeng's words would be reasonable. People in Jianghu had reached a critical juncture in their cultivation, and they couldn't be disturbed the most. Being willing to see Zhao go alone was already giving him face, and there was no reason to let more people go in. However, many of the people present knew why they had come to Wutang Mountain this time. Knowing that there was going to be a big battle, everyone's heart was tense. At this time, Zhang Sanfeng's move was obviously very much like Jia Shidao's killing trap. In fact, Li Yinshi's advice was unnecessary. Although Zhao Go had absolute confidence in this operation, he wasn't a fool. How could he go in alone and risk his life when the situation was unclear? In the house, after Zhang Sanfeng finished speaking, the door automatically opened a gap to show that he was inviting Zhao Go in, and then the room fell into silence. The guards beside Zhao Go all stood on their tiptoes to look in through the gap, but there was a screen inside, and they couldn't see anything. Just as he was in a dilemma, there was a commotion in the distance, and occasionally there were screams. Zhao Go couldn't help but frown. What's happening outside? A guard had already gone out to investigate, and he quickly came back to report, "Sir, someone broke in from the mountain." Zhao Go was instantly furious. How did Wang Zidong guard the outer perimeter? Someone broke into the foot of the mountain. After throwing a tantrum, he remembered that there was still a key question he hadn't asked. How many people are there? But he wasn't too worried. Although Mount Wudong wasn't as steep as Mount Hua, the paths along the way were filled with masters from the front of the palace. Looking down from above, no matter how many people there were, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Only one person, the guard answered bitterly. Only one person? Zhao Go was shocked at first, and then he was furious. He's just one person, and he made such a big commotion. The most elite troops of the Song dynasty entered the Forbidden Army, and the most elite of the Forbidden Army entered the Imperial Guard Army, and the most elite of the Imperial Guard Army entered the Imperial Guard Army, and the most elite of the Imperial Guard Army entered the Imperial Guard Army to protect the Emperor. Back then, a coach of the Golden Spear Squad, Su Ning, wandered the Jianghu and became a bandit. He was ranked second among the 8 light cavalry of Mount Liang, and the name of the Golden Spear Squad shook the world. And the Golden Spear Squad was just one of the Imperial Guard Army, and their position among the Imperial Guard Army was only average. It could be seen just how many crouching tigers and hidden dragons there were in the Imperial Guard Army. So many masters defending in a dangerous position, and yet they were all thrown into chaos by one person. How could Zhao Go not be angry? That person's martial arts are very high. The guard's expression was one of fear, and he seems to know evil arts. Every time he raises his hand, a bloody hole will appear on the bodies of our brothers who are dozens of feet away. And because of the terrain, we couldn't surround him, and we couldn't use our advantage in numbers. So he fought his way up. Zhao Go's expression was ugly. Originally, he had wanted to use the terrain to defend so that the enemy could not make use of their advantage in numbers. He had not expected that the terrain would become the enemy's advantage in the end, causing his side to be unable to make use of their advantage in numbers. What kind of evil art is this? It should be a kind of hidden long-range attack martial art. Is it Shaolin's formless finger of disaster or Dali's 6-pulse divine sword? Drunkard monk muttered to himself. Enlighting could not help but glance at him, wondering if he was not a Shaolin disciple. The visitor is a thin old man. He doesn't look like someone from Shaolin or Dali, the guard replied. At this time, Li Yinshi said, "Don't worry, unless the person is a great grandmaster. No matter how high his martial arts skill is, he won't be able to break through Zhu Banji and his brother's defense line." As the oldest person in charge of the Imperial armament, his experience was naturally extraordinary. He knew the strength of Si Banji in front of the palace the best. Just now, he had been caught off guard. By the time he reacted, the other party would not have been able to get away with it. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, the commotion gradually subsided. It was obvious that the situation was gradually under control. It's not a great grandmaster. Zhao Go secretly let out a sigh of relief. Although he knew that Jia Shirdao would most likely invite a great grandmaster to come this time, It was still great to have one less. However, his smile soon froze because he heard the sound of waves. An image appeared in his mind. The tide in the distance was slowly pushing forward, and it was getting faster and faster. Behind it, the waves were raging, and the white waves were like mountains. In the tide, fish were leaping and whales were floating, and on the surface of the sea, the wind was howling and the gull was flying. Together with the water demons and sea monsters, a group of demons was stirring up the tide. Suddenly, icebergs were floating, and suddenly, the sea was boiling. It was extremely unpredictable. After the tide receded, the water level was like a mirror, but the undercurrent at the bottom of the sea was turbulent. It was silent and dangerous. Wu-Tang Mountain is inland. How can there be the sound of waves? Ding Dian and the other guard were puzzled. Suddenly, the vigorous sound of the waves changed, becoming erratic and lingering. It was as if there was an incomparably beautiful mermaid in the sea, smiling faintly, whispering softly, extremely soft and alluring. Ding Dian heard it for a while, and he felt his face and ears turn red. He felt his heart tremble, and he wanted to jump up and dance several times. He was shocked. No, this isn't the sound of waves. This is the sound of a flute. The sound of the flute was erratic and lingering. It was like a woman sighing, moaning, and then softly calling out. Ding Dian knew it was inappropriate, but he couldn't help but think of the sweet days he had with Ling Shuanghua over the years. He thought of his wife's soft skin, which was as gentle as water. Fortunately, he had mastered the holy illumination art, and there was still a trace of consciousness left in his mind. He remembered that he was protecting the emperor, and he couldn't allow anything to happen to his children. He hurriedly adjusted his breathing and finally gradually woke up. Only then did he realize that his entire face and ears were red, and his back was drenched in sweat. The others beside him were even worse. They were all dancing as if they had gone crazy. Only a few people with imperial equipment could still barely control themselves. However, their expressions were painful, and it was obvious that they were almost at their limit. Ding Dian was shocked and hurriedly looked at Zhao Guo. He realized that his expression was normal, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. He could not help but understand. As the emperor's closest guard, he naturally knew the emperor's physical condition. This strange sound of the flute was mainly to arouse the lust in one's heart. Ever since the emperor's body was injured, he had long lost interest in the matters between men and women. Naturally, he would not be affected by the sound of the flute. Amiba, the wine-fighting monk suddenly put his palms together, and his gentle Buddhist chant instantly woke everyone up. Please forgive us, Your Highness. It was a serious crime for a group of guards to lose their manners in front of the emperor. They hurriedly knelt down and asked for forgiveness. Yin Lighting, who was at the side, also blushed. Originally, Wudong Kung Fu was orthodox and would not be affected by such evil things. However, he thought of his fiancée, Ji Xiaofu, and his daughter, Yang Buhui, who looked almost identical to her, becoming his wife. He thought of the intimacy between husband and wife in bed. It was inevitable that his mind would sometimes imagine the woman beneath him as his mother. The Song of the Jade Tide. So it is Island Master Huang of Peach Blossom Island who has graced us with his presence. The wine-fighting monk let out a long sigh, and his voice seemed to contain infinite regret. He could not understand why such a noble person like him would participate in such a filthy thing. You are a beautiful person. How can you become a thief? Chapter 2009. Even a master of your level has become a lackey of the imperial court. A cold and arrogant voice rang out. Following that, an old man in green with a jade flute in his hand appeared on the wall of the courtyard. His appearance was thin and his eyes were as clear as a god's. His entire body gave off a graceful and elegant air. Xiao Shushuan's unique temperament made it very difficult to associate him with an ordinary old man. Others would subconsciously ignore his age and think that the person standing in front of them was a handsome and carefree man. The man was Huang Yaoshe of Peach Blossom Island. He was one of the 5 masters of the Central Plains and was known as the Eastern Heretic. His magic flicking was famous throughout the world. But even so, he was unable to break through the defenses of the Bonji guards. However, he was proficient in music and spent his days listening to the tides on Peach Blossom Island. He developed a unique skill called the melody of the rising tide. He infused his internal energy into his flute, and even Zhou Batong, who was second only to the 5 masters, was tormented by this song. Of course, although this martial art was amazing, it also had its limitations. It could only be used to its greatest effect against people whose inner energy was weaker than the user's or whose mind was in a mess. Against other masters, this song was not very useful. For example, Ouyang Feng, the Western Poison, could use the sound of his iron zither to resist, and Hong Qigong could use the sound of his whistle to resist. But when used to deal with ordinary people, this martial art could be regarded as a group attack skill. When Huang Yaoshe was climbing the mountain, he could use his special skills, such as the divine flicking finger, to open the way. But when the guards in front of the hall realized what was going on, the pressure on him increased, and he might even be surrounded and killed on a mountain path. Fortunately, he was prepared and used the song of the rising tide. Although Zhu Banji had many masters, none of them had reached the level of one of the 5 masters. Huang Yaoshe's flute had evoked the evil thoughts in their hearts, and they were unable to extricate themselves from their fantasies. Very soon, they began to kill each other. Huang Yaoshe took advantage of this opportunity and went all the way to the small courtyard in the bamboo forest at the back of the mountain. When they saw Huang Yaoshe's identity, many people were shocked. Li Yanshi, who was carrying an imperial weapon, stepped forward and shouted, "Island Master Huang, your daughter and son-in-law have been helping the imperial court defend Xianyang for many years and are admired by the people. Why are you rebelling? Bastard, how dare you mention them?" A murderous look appeared on Huang Yaoshe's face. A few days ago, Ronger was schemed against in Lin and almost died. Jing was even abandoned by you. Now we don't know if he's dead or alive. Is this the result of defending Xianyang? Zhao Go said coldly. "I'm sure Island Master Huang knows why Guijing was abandoned. What are you doing here instead of looking for him?" Judging from Zhao Go's tone, it would be best if he could incite Zhao Go to go against Jia Sherdao. "Humph," Huang Yaoshe snorted. "That stinky brat Guijing, I didn't like in the past. All these years, I still find him very annoying. Why would I come here for him?" Hearing him directly deny it, Zhao Go started, not knowing how to continue persuading him. The drunkard monk said in confusion, "Everyone says that Island Master Huang doesn't follow the rules of etiquette, and that everything you do is 70% evil. However, I've observed your way of doing things for the past few years. Although you are 70% evil, you are 30% good. Moreover, you are evil in small matters, but you are very serious when it comes to big matters. Your daughter was only slightly wronged in Lin and she was safe and sound in the end. Island Master Huang, why would you go against your superiors just for such a small grievance?" Huang Yaoshe's face darkened. That unfilial woman does things indiscriminately. She deserved what happened in Linen. Everyone looked at each other, thinking that Madame Guo was beautiful and dignified. She was the best person to deal with people, and everyone around her praised her. Why did he call her an unfilial woman? Then why did Island Master Huang come here? The drunkard monk was even more confused. Huang Yaoshe frowned and hesitated for a moment before saying, "If someone else asked me, I would say that since I'm called the Eastern Heretic, I don't need to explain my actions to others. It's just that your martial arts are obviously higher than mine, but you've been so polite from the beginning. Just based on this attitude, I'll let Zhao Go know." "How dare you? How dare you call an official by his name?" The guards all unsheathed their long sabers. Zhao Go's face twitched. He was obviously angry. Huang Yaoshe ignored them and looked in the direction of the East Sea. He seemed to be recalling something. During the rebellion of Jinkong, the Central Plains fell into enemy hands. Zhao Go ascended the throne and reorganized the Song dynasty. Everyone thought that he was the leader of a resurgence. Countless people in the Central Plains formed a volunteer army and waited for the emperor's army to attack the north. In the end, this spineless guy surrendered to Jinshi and begged for peace. All the people in the court and the public were filled with righteous indignation. Hearing him describe the scene of the past, many people secretly glanced at Zhao Go. Many of them had personally experienced the events of the past, and they criticized Zhao Go's actions. Of course, there were also many who felt that the emperor's actions brought peace to the people, and there was nothing to criticize. Zhao Go's face was dark, and no one knew what he was thinking. Huang Yaoshi continued. The country was in turmoil, and the dissatisfaction with the emperor grew. At this time, a mysterious secret manual suddenly appeared in Jianghu, and everyone fought for it. The people of Jianghu were mostly hot-blooded men. Originally, everyone was thinking about how to recover the Central Plains and make the Jin pay in blood. So some people went north to join the volunteer army, and some set their sights on the country, trying to think of ways to force the emperor to change his mind. But once this peerless secret manual appeared, coupled with the many miraculous rumors, everyone's attention shifted to fighting over this secret manual. In the end, the great waves washed away the sand. A few great masters discussed swords at Mount Hua to decide the ownership of this secret manual. I just happened to be there and received the title of Eastern Heretic. But after a few years of fighting in Jianghu, everyone had formed an irreconcilable hatred. How could they work together to expel the Tartars and restore China? The Nine-Yin Manual. Hearing this, how could the crowd not understand what this secret manual was? Listening to Huang Yaoshi's words, could it be that the whole thing was a trap set up by the court? Ding Dian's expression changed several times. He was originally a Jianghu man, and he was the latest to join the Imperial Armament Division. Later, he learned of Huang Cheng's existence by chance. He had wondered why the original author of the Nine-Yin Manual was still alive, and why did this secret manual end up in Jianghu and cause such a bloody storm. Of course, he did not think about these things in detail. Now that Huang Yaoshi had analyzed it, it seemed that the internal court had deliberately spread the Nine-Yin Manual to Jianghu. Huang Yaoshi's voice gradually became deeper. At that time, I was young and full of vigor. I always wanted to train my martial arts to become the best in the world. But at the swords meet at Mount Hua, I saw Wang Chongyang's martial arts. I knew that no matter how much I trained, I would never be able to surpass him. Wang Chongyang became the best in the world, and the Nine-Yin Manual naturally fell into his hands. I gave up on this idea. Who would have thought that not long after, Wang Chongyang would die young, and the Nine-Yin Manual would fall into the hands of his martial brother, Zhou Batong. When Zhou Batong was mentioned, Huang Yaoshi's face revealed a mixture of anger, admiration, and sorrow. Zhou Batong's martial arts were not bad, but they were still a bit lacking compared to the rest of us. At that time, the Southern Emperor was disheartened by concubine Lu's affair and did not care about worldly affairs. The Northern beggar wandered around the world, and all day long he was elusive. In the end, only Western Poison and I had any ideas. Western Poison directly broke into the Chuanjin sect, but Wang Chongyang, who had faked his death, broke his toad stance. He had no choice but to return to the White Camel Mountain Villa to practice. Although I also wanted the Nine-Yin Manual, I could not bring myself to snatch it like Ouyang Feng did. My wife, Hung Er, saw through my thoughts, so she made a bet with Zhou Batong to borrow the Nine-Yin Manual. Although Zhou Batong was on guard against me, he knew that Hung did not know any martial arts. Moreover, the Nine-Yin Manual was difficult to understand. Even a martial arts expert would not be able to understand it. So he gave her the time it took to burn a stick of incense to burn. But he did not expect that my Hung would have a good memory. In a short period of time, she was able to memorize the Nine-Yin Manual. Speaking of this, Huang Yaoshi was full of pride, but he quickly heaved a long sigh and said, "It's a pity that the entire Nine-Yin Manual is as obscure as a heavenly book, and Hung Er is pregnant. Memorizing it will consume too much energy." Later on, the manual was stolen by Mei Chaofeng and Chun Xianfeng. Hung did not want to grieve over this, so she secretly tried to memorize the manual. Hung Er's body was weak, so after thinking day and night, she finally became exhausted and died of dystocia. Huang Yaoshi suddenly looked at Li Yanshi, Ding Dian, and the others and said, "Because of this, I vented my anger on my remaining disciples. I broke their legs and drove them out of Peach Blossom Island. One of them was called Shu Lingfeng. In order to win my favor, he returned to the sect and snuck into the palace to steal some precious calligraphy and paintings. As a result, he was chased by your people with imperial weapons. In the end, he died together with them in a secret chamber in Ox Village. Humph! Shu Lingfeng's kung fu was the best among all my disciples. If I had not broken his legs, he would not have been his match." Li Yanshi sneered and said, "So Shi Yinming was injured by your disciple." Yinming's palm strength was the best in the imperial palace. He had protected the imperial palace several times and was promoted to the rank of imperial weapon commander and Zhongzhou defense commissioner. With his kung fu, he might not be your match, but he could definitely defeat your disciple, not to mention that he was a cripple. The reason why he died together with your disciple was most likely because he was ambushed." Huang Yaoshi frowned. Years ago, Guijing and Huang Rong accidentally broke into the secret chamber of Chu San Tavern in Ox Village and found the corpses of Chu Lingfeng and Shi Yinming. Huang Yaoshi went to the scene to take a look. With his level of cultivation, he could easily reconstruct the scene. Chu Lingfeng was chased by Shi Yinming and managed to escape back to his secret chamber. He tried to use the art of becoming invisible to confuse Shi Yinming. Unfortunately, he was not skilled enough in this aspect, and Shi Yinming managed to see through the mechanism and barge in. Chu Lingfeng fought desperately, but was still no match for Shi Yinming. 2 rows of his ribs were shattered by Shi Yinming's palm strength. Shi Yinming thought that Chu Lingfeng was dead and turned around to retrieve the stolen calligraphy and paintings from the imperial court. Who would have thought that Chu Lingfeng had taken some medicine like the 9-flower jade dew pill in advance and was still breathing? Chu Lingfeng used the last of his strength to stab Shi Yinming from behind and kill him. Nonsense! Huang Yaoshi snorted. Although he knew the truth of the matter, he still felt guilty for venting his anger on his disciples. Chu Lingfeng died because of him. Naturally, he did not want to ruin his disciples' reputation after his death. Speaking of which, it was Island Lord Huang's greed, anger, and obsession that caused this series of consequences. Dojo Monk could not help but sigh. Huang Yaoshi's expression changed. He said coldly, "In the past, I also thought that I brought all of this upon myself. Therefore, I prepared a flower boat made of glue and waited for Rome to grow up so that she could ride the boat and be buried with her. However, in the past 2 years, I suddenly found out about the origins of the 9 manual. Naturally, I knew who the culprit was. Who killed my home? Even if it was the emperor, I would still bury him." Please remember this book's original domain name. Come, Wonderful Book House mobile version website. Come, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.